I think as the only
Auto
American as
mission.
the panel, I just by default win no matter what, just to be clear. So,
True.
Because
Auto
you're
win.
wearing a rainbow shirt. I think
well, that's for Pride
actually...
Month. I'm just saying there's no other Americans here, so like my opinion's already worth double, right?
Oh my God, you are the only. Holy shit. Yeah, I guess that counts.
Cool. All right.
well,
the rest is a
but-
formality, but I'll take that
Yeah,
W.
we'll roll with it. But then you're not okay. All right, fair enough. All right, I will put everybody backstage, and then of course, as always, the 30 seconds before the
Dakota.
end of the intro video.
You guys ready for the intro?
I will put
One's
you all
in the
back
chat
on
if you want me to
stage, and
mute
that
it.
will be your
I'm gonna
cue.
probably
Soy,
mute it.
I hope you enjoyed the new intro video tonight.
Ooh, wait. Maybe. Okay, I was asking my chat, should I mute the intro if it's too loud? But if it's new, we have to watch it.
It's new. All
right, sorry, guys,
good.
no mute.
It's good.
We're
I
watching.
think you make an apparence in it too. So
Okay,
All
well, no, we're
right,
definitely not
here-
muting it.
it's good. Here we go. All right. Any last final questions? All right. Have fun. Good luck to you all. Thank you.
Yeah, no, Sarah's a sweetheart, and Sarah's very organized. She plans so far ahead. She's got all this stuff going on. I really do appreciate all the effort she puts into this. Oh, here we go. Panels are doing a wiki panel tomorrow, so they're not gone. Ooh, Ryan, I want to do a panel with you.
Generally, you said feminism is neutral.
Here's what actually happened.
I'm mad the foundation of all knowledge.
Money. I'm really mad that
What difference does it make, right? What
Stop.
difference?
Stop.
the deregulation of the industry is obviously going to cause more of that industry.
To lubricate the trust connection between people
I'll make them invite
until
you back,
they have
Jonah.
enough.
Yet we could still look at biological reality in determining who's a female, even if there are.
Why don't you denounce feminism the same way you're denouncing capitalism? If you don't...
For something to be objective, it needs to be verifiable. And you can't verify...
If I make a claim as a political pundit, it is true that I definitely could be wrong. That you're promoting, right?
Ideologies that make feminist politics, right? This is my ideology.
Yeah, but
So, 2015, anyone go back and watch the footage?
This is much better. I think if she cuts out the like pauses in between.
Oh, they'd be
Great.
okay. Very hard, you said.
Just needs to be cleaned up a little. Very good premise. Much better. I gotta do the Leo meme when I show up. You guys can see. Oh! It's me! Alright, go to the intro. Oh, it's me again! Already goaded. Double goaded. This does feel like the nostalgic critic.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. I am Sarah, the Raging Tomato, here bringing to you live another Moderator Monday. This evening, we asked the question, should government censor hate speech content? And we're particularly referencing the Yee song, the new Yee song. I won't say the words, and we're going to be mindful of saying the words, but we know which one we're all talking about. If you haven't heard it, go on Twitter, find it there. Outside of that, we've got the Soy Pill, Neve, Teriak, and Team Fatty joining us this evening. Soy Pill, if you'd like to start with your opening statement, please.
Yeah, real quick before I start, are we not allowed to say, I know the N-word's banned, are we not allowed to say HH? Because I was going to say it at certain points. As long as I'm clearly not saying it.
Let's give him a new name, Mustache Dude.
Okay, I'll be careful with you. All right, anyway, my intro. Yeah, so lots of people claim to be free speech absolutists, and I don't believe any of them. Everyone agrees that there should be some limit to speech. In America, it's pretty loose, but there's tons of things that we can't do, like obscenity, fraud, speech that incites imminent lawless action or threat to violence, etc. So I would hope that everyone here would at least agree that incitements to violence should be difficult to prove, but should also be illegal. My position is that there are types of hate speech that aren't explicit calls to violence, but can be classified as such. We do this already with things like burning crosses, which in isolation could just mean that you got cold in a church, but with context can be seen as hate speech that directly incites violence to black people. Germany, while I don't agree with all of their limitations on speech, some of them go too far, is also able to encompass things like Holocaust denial into the Volksverhetzung, or incitement to violence, due to their history, education, and totality of evidence proving it. They even ban parties, hate speech or otherwise, who run on a platform of dismantling democracy. So I think that certain hate speech content should be banned by the government, so long as there is a very strong burden of proof as to the line that must be crossed and when it is crossed, because I refuse to hand over the reins of power to anti-democratic or hateful people in the name of free speech.
Wow, that's fast. Thank you, Soy Pill. Neve, to you.
I think mine's going to be even shorter. Hold on one sec here. So hate speech content should be banned by governments when it is at odds with the protections or guarantees of the political system. Those who favor the freedom of speech absolutist position do so holistically and without the understanding that freedom of speech has never been honored in its entirety. The most permissive of governments, being the United States, it routinely violates the First Amendment, and while that should be litigated and addressed, it could be argued that many of the actions of the current U.S. administration obviously violate freedom of speech. I would argue that if the government is to limit hate speech or speech at all in general, they should do so in the interest of its citizens. Many countries around the world define hate speech, and they also have like stated intentions for doing so. A lot of the common theme that you're going to see internationally would be, limiting speech around anti-Semitism. I also wanted to address the slippery slope direction that I believe Fatty and Teriak are probably headed in. I think that if you're going to take the slippery slope position in this debate, that allowing government to limit speech at all would lead to, more authoritarian measures or the control of the narrative by the government in its entirety. I think that again, would be fallacious in this instance because you are removing the government's ability with the levers of power to litigate each instance with nuance and understanding for the individual circumstance. So that's where I wanted to start, and I'll pass it on to Teriak and Fatty.
One of my hidden chats says, "Be better dressed." Sorry,
yeah. So first of all, hail Prometheus. Second of all, Sarah, thanks for having me on the show. As always, it's always a pleasure. Third of all, just to the viewers, you might see Fatty with a spatula. Don't pay any attention to that. That's just because Fatty's going to be cooking. Okay, so that's the reason why it's the spatula. Okay, and to the main point, we're talking about government censorship here. Particularly in terms of the song that Kanye released.
Thanks to Coda.
And I take what would have been a typical liberal position, 20 years ago, but it seems now that they want government to curtail speech. And what problems come when you give government such a power? Because and I've seen this both on the left side and the right side as well. So this is not like a particular kind of like political standing to it. Both sides essentially are happy with an authoritarian government so long as it's an authoritarian government that supports their worldview. But this is the thing, like, once you vote in the power for the government to start suppressing speech, then what happens when a government you don't like or a government that doesn't have your worldview gets into power and starts manipulating that tool that you gave them to then curtail your own speech, right? Because we've seen it multiple times throughout history where speech needs to get limited for the benefit of society, and all it basically does is it cuts out all criticism of government, and it's basically used as a tool to enslave its own people, essentially. Any dissent, any correction. We've seen this even in the 2020, 2021. Anyone who spoke against the science is already settled, guys. Don't you know the science is already settled? Fauci is the science. All this kind of malarkey where it's like basically gaslighting actual doctors. So it's like when we're in a stage where America's supposed to be a free speech country, it's like the First Amendment. And even in that, the people who were coming out with actual scientific studies,
normally I charge Dakota, but
were suppressed,
might not have known.
And we have the files that came out from X where the government was literally, and even Mark Zuckerberg was on Joe Rogan saying, the FBI is basically telling us to shut this down. That's when you know that it's even gotten to a stage where even though you have free speech as an American, it was still they still tried to counteract it. So imagine if we took away the First Amendment.
Good one, Tin.
what way would have it looked then? How bad would it have been then? That's basically the main point that me and Fatty are basically going to drive home here today. Is that it's always like we put like a controversial figure like Yi in place, and then we say, do you want us to take away his freedom of expression? Yeah, of course. He's saying the thing about the small mustache man, of course. But the counter to that, the counter to bad speech is more speech. It's good speech. It's not, I'm going to take away your right to do bad speech. That's just, it's a stupid or a silly outcome in terms of that. So that's pretty much kind of like where I'm at. So yeah, fighting for free speech, baby.
Thank you, Teriak, and Fatty, to you.
How are you guys doing? I hope you guys are doing good. Yeah, I'm going to be shorter than I think than everybody. Censorship tool. So I hope we can have fun. Thank you very much for having me.
Sorry, Fiend.
Thank you, Fatty. I appreciate all of you being here this evening. And to the viewers, welcome and thank you. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Check out everybody. Their names are posted up here, but also in the description box. We are going to get through an open dialogue. We will move into closing statements about 11:15 p.m. EST. Read and respond to your kind super chats. And then, of course, as always, we will go into open panel dumpster fire. And I hear we're expecting Wick TV possibly as well to make an appearance. There's some shots fired on Twitter. Outside of that, I leave the floor open to you.
Yeah, for the record, I'm going to be more mean to him than anyone on this panel. Okay, because we're friends, so I'm allowed to be. I have a question, or a couple questions for you, Teriak, and maybe one for you, Fatty. So a couple of things you said. I mean, look, let's get this out of the way first. So if we're only looking at the Ye example, I think probably, unless Neve disagrees with me, what he did is not an incitement to violence. I don't think you could, beyond a burden of a doubt in some sort of court, prove that what he did was so bad that it should be banned. There's an argument to be made of why you're not allowed to say what he said in Germany, because, like I said, there is such a precedent in that country, and they have a very, very strict line that's very, very strictly defined, that they don't allow that. However, I don't think that exists in America, so I don't think it should necessarily be applied to him. But a couple of things you said make me question, I guess, where your actual free speech position is. You said that your current position is the liberal position 20 years ago. In 2003, there was a Supreme Court case, Virginia versus Black, where they established that burning a cross is illegal because it is an incitement to violence. Even though it is not an explicit call to one, the intimidation factor and what is called a true threat, aka the likelihood of violence to pursue from this action, was determined by that Supreme Court. So my question is, what free speech are you okay with limiting, or are you one of the absolutist, every single thing is okay people?
No, like calls to violence, obviously, false advertisement, like all those kind of like speech, like that's not like free speech in terms of like expressing yourself, showing dissent for a certain thing. Like even with Yi's example, like there's no calls to violence that he's inciting there.
Right. So, for example, on that thing, whether or not it's a call to violence, I think agreed, especially if you look at the man, he's like a schizophrenic. He's in America. He definitely does not have the education. And apparently talking to one Jewish celebrity like Adam Sandler can get him to flip 180, if not then flip 180 back a week later. But the thing is, you're also saying that the counter to bad speech is more speech. And I guess my question to that is, if there are people that are doing something that isn't an explicit call to violence, but absolutely results in violence happening. So say in a hypothetical world, everyone is going out screaming, HH, and this is not the world we live in, but imagine in this world, when they do this, you can draw a direct line to violence that results from every single time it happens. What speech counters that, and why would the government not then step in to stop people from making those calls?
Yeah, so you just explain exactly what that regime wanted, because it wasn't just the Jays, it was the Slavs, it was the disabled, it was like all sorts of like deplorables or whatever word he used. Like surely like you as liberals would actually want this song to come out, because now we can like point it out and say, see, they're praising the small mustache man. You know what I mean? They're all Yahtzees. I told you. Like surely as liberals, like you're like, yeah, like this is out now. They're all out of there. The mask is off. Now they're all coming out as like actual Yahtzees.
I see what you're saying. No, my question is, what speech, like you said, the counter to bad speech is more speech. If in speech, the world where everyone is screaming HH, everyone is promoting some sort of, can we not say the NAZI word, Sarah? Like seriously, is that also banned?
I like to play a dice game called
Yeah, I was gonna
Yahtzee.
say I was gonna say Yahtzee.
Oh my god! Like if there's like 6 different words I'm not allowed to say, and I have to do some dumb TikTok speech, I might self-immolate on stream. I'm just gonna say that.
Here's what I say: we try to avoid it as much as we can, if we can. Right? If it slips up, I'm not gonna yell at you. I won't like make you leave. Nobody's dying over it. But if you can be mindful of how you're, when you're saying the words,
I'll
that's
try
great.
my best. I'll try my best. Okay, so
I'm not gonna get mad.
Right. So my question was, Teriak, which was in this hypothetical world where everyone is saying what Ye was saying, to the point where you could, in a court, prove that every time this is said, this is a call to violence. What sort of speech counters that? And like, I guess what I'm asking you is, would you concede that there is clearly places where speech does not counter, good speech does not counter bad speech? It becomes a problem regardless of the marketplace of ideas.
Again, it's supposed to be a marketplace of ideas, so the best idea should win. So if you're confident in your own ideas, you should be able to counter with your own worldview.
Okay, I'm confident that World War II, 1940s Germany ideology is bad. However, I don't think anything I could have said would have stopped it from coming to power. So my question is, clearly this is not an absolute thing, right? Like good speech is not the backstop to saving a democracy.
Debating for an election, like that's just pointless. There's no point.
I didn't say it was pointless. I'm saying clearly at a certain point this becomes irrelevant unless the government is able to step in, right?
No.
Why not?
Because like I said, you can counter it with your own ideology. That's why we have debates. That's why we're having a debate now.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let's say we keep having these debates,
ideas,
right?
Yeah, but if challenging ideas didn't stand up to scrutiny, like they do in debates, that's how you counter it.
The point is, Teriak, is that no matter what, at a certain point, it doesn't matter how much I say, hey guys, this speech is bad if it's directly harming people immediately, right? Like this isn't about a feelings thing, like, oh, I really don't like this guy's idea. It's, hey, every time this guy does this, like we already agreed, a call to violence, well, maybe I'm not sure now. You agree that a call to violence should be illegal? I know it is illegal, obviously, but like, right. So why should that speech be illegal?
Because it's directly calling to murder.
Right. So if, Ye's, call of HH is not a call to murder, right? However, in a world where it would be, you're saying that a good speech would then say, hey, actually, like...
In a worldview where Kanye was actually doing a call to violence, then yeah, this is not even a conversation.
Right. So my point is that certain of these things that are not explicit calls to violence, like saying HH, can be considered calls to violence depending on how we encompass those, because it's not explicit, right? Like if I just say this, like, I've made Nazi jokes, I've said HH all the time, right? I'm never calling for violence when I do that. However, in the context of like a country like Germany, they have a education system and a like totality of facts that is so blatantly like, without a doubt, you cannot disprove this. Every high schooler goes through and has that education, that after all of that and after all of the proof, and after all of the history and all the burden that has happened to Germany, if you still were to deny the Holocaust or to say like HH, the judge rules that is tantamount to promoting a Nazi ideology that will kill people, right? So depending on how we decide to classify this hate speech, like I think there are clearly things that we would call hate speech, or maybe you don't even agree that hate speech is a real term, that would fall into this, that should be banned. But that's where I'm trying to find your line of like what's actually violence and what isn't.
Like direct calls to violence, like somebody blank that motherfucker.
Right. Okay. So we all agree on that, right? So do you think burning a cross should be illegal?
Wait. We all agree on that?
Oh, do you not agree, Fatty, that direct calls to violence?
So you're going to ban rap music? You are going to win 50 Cent says, G-Unit, whoa, we in here, whoa, we're going to get the drama popping, like, whoa, like, you're going to ban that? All the rappers, Eminem, talking about his mama, putting her on the closet. Are y'all okay with banning it? Because that's clear direct violence, and this is why Germans are hypocrites. They listen to all these rappers saying now we're going to shoot each other and all that, but all of a sudden the other people can be protected. Are y'all okay with banning rap music from the bottom to the top? Is that what you guys saying?
Two things real quick. Fatty, I think you actually are now too quiet right now. Actually, I can barely hear you.
To violence.
I'll turn it up on my end.
All right, you can turn Fatty up. Okay, so yeah, one, get louder. Two, Germany actually has an explicit carve out for artistic expression. So, for example, like if someone were to portray Nazis in a movie, that's allowed. However, to like promote that ideology, you're just not allowed. And I think the thing that's really important here is that you look at how this is reviewed by judges and by a bunch of different people and can be appealed. And sometimes these things go all the way up to the Supreme Court. And while not everyone's going to agree 100% on every single case, rap music, especially rap music that's just rapping about, you know, I don't know, doing gang stuff and not explicitly saying, hey, go out and, I don't know, like if Kendrick made a song that's like, hey, all my fans should go kill Drake, that would be very different,
in
right?
The shoes. What does that mean?
There's literally a rap genre called drill music, which is blah blah blah. I'm going to go to your house and blah blah blah. Like, what are you talking about, sir?
No. You maybe misunderstood. My point is that if you look at the context of some,
what are we going to drill? Are we going to ban drill music?
I think if you could show that drill music is explicitly calling to violence in a way that results in direct harm to people every single time, you could make an argument. I don't think that's. I don't think it's reached that level yet.
What do you think gangster rap is?
These people literally will brag about deleting somebody on the next week they are deleted. This is literally gangs talking with each other, bragging about the things that they did to the other side.
Okay,
are you okay with banning that? There's literally inciting violence.
Fatty, I'm glad.
Tupac,
I'm glad that you agree that. Like, obviously it would be naive to say that drill music hasn't led to any violence, but I think what you need to identify in the genre is that they're making descriptive claims about their lifestyle and the sort of experiences they've had in life. And so if that is them explicitly, like, who is the guy in jail? I want to say it's not
Gucci Mane.
No, there was someone else.
The rapper in jail is going to be
King Von sort of
wide,
whatever. But if you think about it, I mean, they're making descriptive music about their experiences and sort of conflict that they have. I wouldn't. It would be one thing for 50 Cent to have like, you know, I bring my weapons in the club. It would be another thing for him to say, no. You know, no, I'm trying to think of like a good word to say. No, insert marginalized group in the club. You know what I'm saying? Do you see the difference?
Now we're talking. Let's talk about Eat 'Em Up. Right? Let's talk about Eat 'Em Up. Remember, Tupac Shakur and B.I.G. died over talking about each other, right? Remember? Are you okay with, once again, your favorite rapper coming around and saying, I F your bitch and the click you click, and now everybody shooting at each other. Are you okay with banning that, please? I want a clear and concise answer so we can move along, because if the little heads need to be protected because Kanye said some naughty words, are you okay with banning 30 years of history of black people saying, I will do and I don't want even to talk about Eminem and what he said about his mama multiple times. So again, friends, are you okay with banning 30 years of rap music? Yes or no? I want a clear answer before we move along.
Best.
Wait, hold on. Let me get my quick answer to satisfy him. No, I'm not okay with banning 30 years of rap music.
Yeah, I'm not either.
There we go.
That's
easy.
Okay, so I think that the best rap music is hyperbolic in nature, and I think hyperbole is the word that you need to sort of lean on here. I don't think that in a feud that was going to two rival companies in rap music at the time, even though it had to like loose ties to gang culture in each respective city, like we're talking West Coast and New York, even though that you could draw those ties, I don't think that there would be any sort of like law enforcement officer or even people observing the genre at the time that could have said, okay, this is going to lead to the death of X person, right? So I think the hyperbole there, I think the hyperbole there is obviously what you are conflating. No, you're conflating hyperbole with an incitement to violence.
Hyperbole, because literally there was a RICO case with Gunna, there was a RICO case with Young Thug. These people, like literally the government is literally going to these people, listening to the lyrics, and the RICO case is saying that these rappers are connected to gang violence on the streets. Literally, like a couple of months ago, we have several people that we know for a fact that are getting prosecuted because they said something to one of the lyrics and they connected to actually gang violence. This is not hyperbolic. This is actually happened. Look at King Von. King Von is one of those, and he died. But he's dead now. So once again, if I beg you, right? What is the difference between why can black people say they will delete each other for 30 years and nobody says nothing about it? Germany doesn't want to censor it. Everything is okay. And Nazi, somebody that was wearing hoodies. Not Kanye West was there wearing KKK hoodies, and nobody said nothing about it. Nobody said, "Oh, this is so so offensive. But as soon as he says, no, you know what?
Can we go one point at a time? I think what you're not understanding is that like rap lyrics as they relate like post crime. So let's say, for example, somebody goes missing and then we find out later they have been murdered or unalived. Okay. Now, if the song comes out post death and there's descriptive claims, then obviously about the death and the nature of the death, obviously that could be used in courts, and it has been in the past. I'm trying to think of the specific rapper, but you know what I'm referring to. And so that's different than said rapper saying, okay, at this date and this address, or we're killing all people that look like X, Y. No, like we're killing all people that look like X, Y, and Z. And then if after that, a week down the road, somebody dies as a result, then maybe you have an argument, but you're not understanding that difference.
So if tomorrow the Ku Klux Klan decides to do a song about doing something to black people, but they don't put a date and a time on it, right? That's okay. If I go ahead and I do a terroristic threat, I write the whole manifesto, I'm going to New York.
Fatty, are you familiar with the concept of a true threat, like legally? Have you heard of?
I can write whatever I want and say whatever I want, but as long as the date is not precise, I can get away with it, friends. That's what you guys telling me.
That's not what we're saying. Do you know what a true threat is?
No. You were not talking. It was Neve. You don't.
Well, I know Neve doesn't agree with that either. So.
I want to make
okay, but okay. I mean, there's a bit of a language barrier right now. You don't speak Canadian, so maybe you can speak American.
That's crazy. Hey, the debate already won, but you guys can keep moving.
Yeah, keep dancing. Keep dancing.
No. Sarah, I keep forgetting to claim victory every sentence. Like, it keeps working. No, Fatty, so are you familiar with the concept of a true threat?
No, explain to me, please, sir.
Yeah, so like legally, this is like in the case of the Virginia versus Black case, that it is beyond a reasonable doubt that the threat is intended, right? So if you right now, Fatty, said, I'm going to delete you, Soy Pill, in Minecraft or something, just to like cover your tracks, it would be very difficult for us to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that that was an imminent threat to my life, right? We would have to, like, maybe there would be an investigation. So like you said, there are rappers that are investigated. I think Eminem was visited by the Secret Service because he's like, oh, I want to kill Agent Orange or whatever, right? But when they go and they investigate and they see, okay, you do not have plans to do this, there's not an imminent threat here, this is clearly an artistic expression, that is the government working in a way that I'm okay with. I'm fine with them looking into the people that might say things that could be perceived as an imminent threat. There's obviously going to be a gray area here. Like, it doesn't have to say the explicit time and date, but the reason you've brought that up was because it would absolutely be explicit if they're like, hey, Drake, tomorrow at noon, I'm going to show up at your house, right? So the point is that, one, the government's already investigating this stuff, and whether or not you're okay with that, maybe we can talk about that. But the point is they have to go and see if it is a true threat. And if it is a true threat, that is the point in which we might be okay with that speech being banned, because first of all, that there's already a precedent for that, like we said with the crosses thing. I don't know how you feel about that, but when they can show that it is incitement to violence, when they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that it is, that's okay. Now, do you want to address like the idea of whether or not anyone can?
We want to address the topic of the point, which is like, should government censor hate speech content? For example, Yee song, and you admitted you wouldn't censor it. So it's
that specific one, no, I don't think that was a true threat. Yeah. So.
Hey, Cypril, can you say something that you would like? Don't say it because I know you're crazy. But can you say something that you would say? You know what? Like, pinpoint it. Use it on a phrase. So we can understand.
So this is going to be a controversial one for sure. Yeah. So this is going to be a controversial one. I don't think we're there yet. However, we're getting there, and you can see this happening. So now that we've had several terrorist attacks, where at the end of which people are, screaming, from the river to the sea or free Palestine, I still think there are many people that mean that to mean, hey, I want to liberate the people of Gaza. Hey, I want Israel to stop their campaign in Gaza. However, if this escalates to the point where those people lose their voice in the same way the swastika, was co-opted by the Germans in 1940, I think you could call that now an incitement to violence at a certain point. At the current moment, no, I wouldn't be okay with it, but I can see it escalating to the point where this is no longer just saying from the river to the sea. This is turning into a true threat. This is turning into an incitement to violence. But again, this is just like the HH case, where at the current moment, I think this song, it's not a call to violence. You can't beyond a reasonable doubt show that this is a direct call to violence. However,
do you see how slippery Soy Pill was there, where it's like, oh well, like, river to the sea, it's technically not a thing, but like, even if you have a slogan, so if let's say to say make America great again, well, that could be seen as a call to violence. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
but it can't be, right? Like, they would have to be beyond a reasonable doubt. And right now, there are very clearly cases where that's not the case, right?
Yeah, but on January 6th, they were yelling, "Make America Great Again."
Yeah, but you right now are wearing a MAGA hat and not committing violence imminently. So the point is that it's not this like all-encompassing thing.
Hey, the fact that you are answering the question like that, this is why government shouldn't actually put the finger on it. It could be someday, sometime, it depends. And now you get a judge that is loony or a president that is loony.
Yeah, that's why we have an appellate process where you can appeal when it is a bad decision. But again, that's why I asked. This is why I used the Burning Cross example.
Never get anything wrong, like,
this is why I use the Burning Cross example, because I want to know both of your answers to this.
I just want to kind of reset the panel. You guys are starting to talk over each other, and it's not helpful to the viewers. If we could be mindful of that. Go ahead, Teriak.
Yeah, like the whole kind of like.
You guys are on the same team. Don't talk over each other.
We just want him to be specific about it because he was very wishy-washy about it. Be specific. Send me something that is not clearly, I'm going to do something to that person at that hour that you will ban as hate speech.
So cross-burning was the example that I wanted to talk about. I want to know both your positions on it because that is not an explicit call to violence. I think there's plenty of examples where you could burn. If I took a cross out of like the closet right now and I burned it, that's not.
So you made the claim. You made the claim that this is an epidemic. We're starting to see this thing where we need to give government censorship powers. So what is so urgent that we need to give government?
I think you're inserting your own argument here.
How?
Yeah, I'm not saying that anything should be granted to the government.
Inserting your own words and arguing against it. What do you mean how?
He made the claim that things are so bad that we need to start putting in government censorship. So I'm asking, what are the examples? Because I don't think we have an epidemic of cross burnings.
Well, hold on. Let me clear this up then, because I'm not saying right now that it's like so bad that we need to expand government powers. I'm saying there's a precedent for taking things that are not explicit calls to violence and categorizing a behavior or an action in that, and that wasn't in that before, and that should be allowed, and that does constitute certain forms of hate speech, cross burning being one of them. So that's why I'm asking you, do you think that burning a cross should be illegal?
Again, like the whole premise is around the Ye song, right?
Well, if you want to keep defaulting to that example, if the whole debate is the Ye song, we can just stop now because I don't think that should be banned per se. Okay, done. Cool. Take the W. All right, let's move on to the actual conversation.
Can we explain the title of the debate quickly because this is lost on you? Should government censor hate speech content? For example, the Ye song. Do you understand the distinction there?
Yeah.
So do you believe that we're having?
So let me explain. The hate speech is to say that Ye song would be considered hate speech, which means you would be in favor of banning that. So the fact that we're even in the title it says hate speech, but Soypil is trying to bring in calls to violence shows how weak his argument is. He's going into stuff that's not protected speech.
The point is with the cross burning is that was protected speech for years and decades of American history, and we changed it. I'm not saying that every single thing that could ever be considered hate speech should be banned. If you think that's the premise of the debate, that is ridiculous. Obviously, I'm not arguing for that. What I'm saying is there are things that were not considered hate speech that is illegal, that is hate speech, that we would classify as hate speech, and at this point have become illegal because of the way that it can be classified into a call to violence, even though they're not explicit, which is why I keep asking about the cross thing. You called me slippery. I mean, you still haven't answered. Do you think burning a cross should be illegal?
I've already said no. I've no issue.
Okay, so why do you think it shouldn't be illegal?
Yeah, so like I said, I've no issue in terms of the burning cross kind of thing. Like, because I can flip it back on you, and I can say, okay, because of the obscenity thing, we need to ban pride parades.
Well, first of all, this is a completely pivot. Like, I'm not talking about pride parades, but although there is a good argument, but there is a good argument for that. Like, be fulsome. Hold on, let me finish.
True threat. Let me finish. And if we get the court in there, we can do the interpretation. But like I said, I can just flip it back on you because, again, depending on what government's in charge, the interpretation is up to the government in charge, and they can say, no, these pride parades are too obscene. That's not protecting the free speech. You're not getting your pride parades.
Oh, okay. Wait, so that you think that there shouldn't be any limitations on anything that's not an explicit call to violence?
Just 1 second.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear you, Fatty. Go ahead.
When Kanye West did the Jesus walks and he had a bunch of crosses burning on the back and all that, nobody said nothing either. Everybody applauded. This is beautiful. Jesus Walks, which is probably Kanye's biggest song, if not one of the biggest, had a bunch of burning crosses in the back. Everybody applauded. Nobody called it hate speech. Nobody said, stop it, please. Because once again, when it's black people do it against black people, yeah, this is art. This is culture. When as soon as everybody does to other people, oh, we need to do something about it. Why?
Okay, so let me try to explain this. So when I say should cross burning be illegal, because by the way, it is right now, and in the way that the Supreme Court ruled on it back in 2003 in Virginia versus Black, in the law, it's not just written cross burning is illegal, right? So if, I don't know if either of you are religious, if either of you have a cross in your home and you took it off the wall and you went outside and you recorded yourself burning it and you're like, I don't like this cross, that's not illegal, right? If you were to go to court, they would laugh you out of the room, right? And there's a reason for that, is because it's contextualized with the cross burnings of the KKK, right? The KKK did it specifically to intimidate Black people, either to imminently show that they're about to murder them or to scare them, intimidate them out of their city or state or whatever, right? So the point is that if you're going to ban this hate speech, which this thing is illegal, judges are going to have the, wherewithal to be able to determine whether or not this is the same thing that was, ruled in that Supreme Court case. There's also the Brandenburg decision. I forgot what year that was, but it's like a 2 or 3 pronged system where you have to show that it is an imminent threat to people. Like there's a very, very high threshold for this. And my point is, I'm okay with that threshold in and of the way that it's been defined and used now. Now, there might be ways where the government, for example, I don't agree with a lot of what the MAGA government is doing right now, where you could get me to say, look, I agreed with the concept of this and the way that it was applied, but in general, it seems like these people are abusing it. However, I think that they are not using Virginia versus Black or Brandenburg to take away free speech. I think they're doing it in ways that are completely different that I would disagree with. So my question to you is, you seem to think that because any government could abuse this, therefore we should have no rules on it. And that doesn't make any sense to me, because would you argue that we shouldn't have police because the government could abuse it to lock everyone up? I still think there are certain ways that we can enforce this. I think there are good ways that we've banned certain types of hate speech. So it seems like you're arguing against the cross burning. I would say that's very clearly, in the way that judges interpret it, a bad thing, and that it should be banned.
Was this pre-written because nobody disagreed against the cross burning again? Like what are you
Well, you did. Teriyaki literally said he doesn't think it should be banned.
Contradicting yourself right now,
this actually sounds pre-written. And once again, respectfully, we have the Patriot Act. Hey guys, we're going to spy on y'all for 1 or 2 years because we were attacked. And as soon as this gets resolved, we'll leave you alone. 24 years later, now they can go into soy peel computer to see him jacking off to, I don't know, random ponies because they didn't stop that. So once again, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Okay,
if the people that are executing the law are biased and they are going to come to this channel, to my channel, and says, Ferry's hate speech absolute because he's misogynist and we need to cancel him, right? You are going to put people in power that are going to have bias like me, for example, and all our channels are wiped out now because we're saying that women should take a shower here and there.
Hold on, you're confusing the private versus public thing. Let's stick to the government, right?
Absolute power to people that will be corrupted, absolutely. And I guarantee you that y'all don't trust the president that have power right now to actually do those things, because he's doing a bunch of things that you would say, nah, this is actually an abuse of the power that we give to him when we need something to stop it. So again,
I think the difference here is the acknowledgement of the process and the recognize. Sorry, the difference being here is that we acknowledge the process. And I also think that in the most permissive country in the world for freedom of speech, in these unique instances where it has been litigated, they're mostly, I think when freedom of speech makes its way up to the Supreme Court, they have a tendency to align themselves with more permissive, ways of speaking or allowing speech. But I think the difference being here is that we're acknowledging the actual process and recognizing that certain things should be given those considerations with nuance, evidence, and historical context. Your position is that not at all, under no circumstance. And I think that it's a slippery slope. I don't think that you necessarily are making a coherent argument.
So give me
I think you're just saying if it can, you're appealing to ignorance. If it could be used in abuse, then it shouldn't be addressed at all. And I don't think that's a valid argument.
So give me a circumstance. This is a slippery slope. You are going to define a clear circumstance where I'm going to
say Was the burning cross not effective, or do you want to hear the nature of the case, or
no? Because the burning cross doesn't talk. The burning cross is a symbol. It's like me coming in and burn the LGBT flag, right? You can say that,
so do you?
Right?
Do you understand that freedom of speech is like freedom, like it's an expression, right?
Yeah.
So it's the way you look, the way you talk, the things that you
So,
make.
Neve,
Okay.
what is your opinion about
So
Charlie Hebdo? Are you familiar with Charlie Hebdo? You know what happened?
I don't know who that
Charlie
is.
Hebdo is a French. It was
Magazine.
a person that did the caricature of the guy from the Middle East, right?
You can say Muhammad. That's not a banned word,
What
right?
happened?
Oh yeah.
Right? Are you okay?
They're all banned.
Yeah, what word? Oh my god, I gotta get like what words am I allowed to say?
Are you okay with them doing depictions of somebody that we know for a fact is going to cause violence if they do that? Are you okay with the character? Is that the name?
Fatty, this is a different situation, right? Because this is
No,
different.
no,
This is not in call to violence.
still-
This is someone doing something that is going to piss
That's
someone
still limit
else off,
speech.
and they'll do violence. This is a completely different thing.
So
And
do you want to
obviously, I
limit
think that
speech
should
or
be
not?
allowed. Huh?
Are you so? But you're because this happens. We know for a fact that 4 of us, if we keep poking the bear long enough, these people are about that life. If we keep doing
Right.
caricatures of
I don't think the
men
limits on
doing
free
something-
speech should be
something
contingent
like
on
weapons
who will
for the
do a
topic.
crime
Are you
against the
okay
person
with-
saying those things, right?
Can you repeat again?
Yeah, so I don't think the limit of free speech should at all be limited because of who might be incited to attack you because of it. Although, actually, I think the Supreme Court might disagree. There are ideas of if your speech would result in the victim committing violence, there are some limitations there I've seen. I don't actually necessarily agree with that because I think the onus is on the person doing the violence. But yeah, no, I don't agree. If the violence is being perpetrated not by the person saying it and not because of the words that they're telling them go do it, but rather the other way around, like, oh, I don't like what you're saying, therefore I'm committing violence against you. Yeah, I don't think we should limit speech based on other people saying, well, I'm going to murder you if you do say those things, therefore legally you shouldn't be allowed to say them.
Yeah, but if you know the outcome, and you want to, like this, for example, the Germans know the outcome. They know what happens when you say things time and time before. Blood and soil. The salt will rise again. You will not replace us. Like we know the sign. I don't have to tell you. I know the consequences. If somebody here in my face comes around and says the N word, or they go to Sarah and they say the B word, and Sarah is with a person that likes Sarah a lot, you will be punched in the face. We know the consequences of saying things that are a little bit like hostile towards other people, right? So
Right.
if you are for control of speech because you are afraid that something happens to people, you should be a pragmatist. We are going to ban every single word that can cause fights, that can cause school shootings, that it can cause terrorist attacks. We are going to do that because 1 + 1 = 2. And if soy peel is going to be on a slippery slope, we can do nothing because the slippery slope is exactly where we stand. If it's a slippery slope, we shouldn't do nothing about it because if Neve is in the Supreme Court, we are going to cry tomorrow because she will wreck us like a motherfucking wrecking ball. So
I don't care what you say. I just care how you pronounce it.
You just, if I say it with the Irish accent, is okay, but if I say it with the Russian accent, it's
Yeah, something like that. Something like
if
that.
I just salty, if he dies, he dies.
Comrade, speak to them with like this.
If he dies, he dies.
No, so Fatty, the thing that's happening there is if someone's doing violence to you because of your speech, it's not you're inciting it insofar as like you're telling people to go commit violence, but you're instigating something, right? First of all, there are legal cases where depending on what you say, you can actually be charged with that. But for the most part, what you're describing, especially in the Charlie Hebdo thing, would be essentially like kowtowing to terrorists. And it's like if a terrorist says, hey, if you say the word and, I'm going to shoot you in the head, I don't think the government should step in and say, well, because of this terroristic, like omnipresent threat, I think they should deal with that terrorist, right? Which is very different from saying there are certain ways that you could tell other people to go do violence, even if you're not explicitly the one who's going to do it, if that's perceived as a true threat, and therefore that thing should be limited. That's different. Like one is kowtowing to terrorists, the other is, hey, you are clearly making the violence happen, not you're instigating someone who is violent.
So for example, when the people with the tiki torches were marching and somebody got deleted in the middle of that, and we know exactly what that means. When like some neo Wadzis get together, if like if all like, isn't that like, would you want to stop that? Would you say, Soypil, if you were the king emperor of the world, could the KKK gather on Sunday and do their morning brunch? Like, would you stop that?
So it's very gray. I think that in the way that it was performed on the night before, I might actually think that's totally fine. I think the ADL specifically defended that because that was just an expression of free speech. Now, the problem is saying something like Jews will not replace us while maybe alluding vaguely to white genocide, that sort of thing, is not an explicit call to violence insofar as something like what else was said on that night, which was gas the K words, race war now, which I do think maybe theoretically could be illegal, especially if you can show how it's causing violence. So it depends on what's saying. And this is why we have this judge process and the appellate process that can go through and say, this is free speech insofar as this is not violating any laws. And it's also not like causing anyone to be directly harmed versus, hey, this is an explicit call to violence and you need to stop doing it.
You are the only American on the panel. So answer this question. Do you trust your judges to actually do what's right instead of doing what's right for them and their party and the people that they are aligned to? Do you trust them?
I don't trust a singular judge to do everything. I have this idea of a king, but I trust that there are enough checks and balances in the system as it stands that we will see outcomes that are at least fair and go through enough appeals. Yeah.
You have to go back to square one. We know that there's checks and balances that can regulate these people. Just like if I ask you, do you trust Donald Trump? I trust there's checks and balances that will stop him.
Well, see, I don't trust the checks and balances because he is superseding those right now, right? But I think if he actually followed the law, it would be fine.
No, but do you have faith in these judges? If I said 51%, which is the majority of them, do you have faith in these judges that they're going to actually be unbiased and to the utmost degree they are going to make sure that they are not just going to do some political prosecution and some we are going to go after our opposition just like the president is doing with the media and with people talking about Palestine and all these things, right? Are you confident of that, Saipil?
I'm more confident in the fact that there's enough variation of opinions in those judges that I would trust them than to not have a law at all. Yeah.
Can I ask
like, for example, real quick, let me just give an example of this, right? Ruth Bader Ginsburg is like mega liberal, right? However, she dissented in that Virginia versus Black case, right? She was on the, hey, it actually should be legal to burn a cross. Insofar as there is enough nuance in these judges that I think they make, pretty reasonable decisions based on precedent, and there's enough of them and enough appeals that I trust that there's at least something happening here that isn't just, hey, like, there could be a flaw here, so we shouldn't do anything. Yeah, I still would trust the judge system.
Okay, can I
go ahead? Ask the question, Neve, since you already lost.
So Fatty, do you think that because I think we're because we're talking about government, right? Government in general. Yes. Could be any government, could be my government, could be your government. Do you believe that it would make sense in some parts of the world to ban the Ye song? Like the HHJ song. Do you feel like it would make sense for them to ban it in some countries?
Absolutely. I live in Europe. I understand why they're doing it.
For sure.
Because we learn through history. We understand that history repeats itself. And if you let it linger long enough, probably
because of context, right? Yes. Okay. I think you kind of concede then.
No, I don't.
I think you kind of do.
Because, 1 second.
I'm not gonna. I could be wrong here, but I think you just did.
I'm a Portuguese citizen, but y'all never curious about whatever we have going on here. So don't use the y'all are in Europe. So
what I'm identifying here is
hold on, Fatty. Let her go.
So what I'm identifying here and what you just acknowledged for the entire panel is that these unique situations can be applied with context and they can be litigated through each individual government. And so you acknowledge that there's enough context that exists in maybe some countries, Germany, the European Union, where a justification of that song would probably be, great, good under the guise of like dog whistling or just explicit mustache quotes. So you recognize that context. However, we would look at the United States government and say a ban is unlikely. Should it be? Should it be not? Maybe not. But you acknowledging that context and that nuance is the argument we're making. So if you concede that exists, then I feel like it's a bit of a concession.
Neve, actually, I will show you the flaw in that system. It's selective.
Tell me.
It's selective. Like I told you, nobody bans rap music in Germany. They ban that loud and clear from the cars because they think it's fun. They think violence that has nothing to do with them. It's fun. I will shoot you. I will do this. I will do that. I will grab you. Very okay. So as soon as it's something that is pertaining to him, no. This is the
you concede the debate.
Now let me finish, Miss Neve. the fact that they are inconsistent with their laws because they protect one group and they let the other ones get away with murder actually shows that the United States shouldn't do it, because the United States are so polarized that if they had the same power of banning things they don't like, they will go crazy every time a president is elected. A president is elected on his side, you can talk about trans people and gay people and black people and women. Ban, 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 ban. Then the Republicans get elected, you can talk about Christianity, we can talk about this, so ban, 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 ban. If you guys have the luck of having Andrew Wilson as the president and he pulls his orthodoxy thing and he comes in and says, I am the president and my judges think that you're talking about Christianity on a bad note is going to give you 3 years in jail. Are you guys confident that Soy and Neve are not going to be in jail by the time of Christmas comes around? Are we okay with this?
So again, you're doing this thing where we're talking about the nuance of the judicial system, and then you're making a complete different hypothetical. Where if Andrew Wilson was king, would we be okay with him, implementing blasphemy laws? And the answer is obviously no. But this doesn't disprove what we're saying. Like, we're talking about the first of all, like, you acknowledge that there are limits to free speech in America, right? Like, clearly, right? Like, there are laws that exist. Are you against every single one of these? Like,
you went into this whole
right. My question is, are you saying that all of these are bad? Okay, I'm not trying to gotcha on the concept of laws. I'm asking, do you think that any and all of these limitations on the First Amendment are bad, like they shouldn't exist?
No. We conceded on the first.
Right. So, and again, I'm not trying to got you on that, but then you're talking about rap music in the context of Germany. It's like, oh, because it's inconsistently applied. But you understand that if in the 40s there was like this giant like feud between the Bloods and Crips in Germany that ended up killing 6 million Jews because of rap music, it would be applied that way, and that's why it's so unique in Germany, right? The difference being that like if you can't show that this is a what do they call it, the Volksverhetzung, that rap music is an incitement to violence in that direct way, then you're not banning it. It's not just because they're talking about killing people. It's not just because they're saying, oh yeah, I do crime, this is so fun. It's specifically this precedent, this very hard line that they've drawn that I might not even agree with. If we go there and I say, hey, look, like some of these things you go too far on, that doesn't mean that there isn't a line that can be drawn and that we can apply it and judges can make some sort of nuanced decision about that on a case-by-case basis.
But sir, there's the point. The glorification of gang banging and drug dealing literally decimated the black community. Like the fact that these kids want to grow up to actually be gangbangers and shooters and the drug dealers is proving the point. He made a massive damage to the black community, because right now, if you step on my shoes, I'll fuck you up. Yes, because I see you with a nice jacket, so now that jacket is mine. Oh, because you touch my bitch, I'll touch your mama. Like, this is regular. The harm is being done, and as soon as these things actually get on track, they go to the top 10 of Billboard because white people consume it like crazy because there's nothing to do with them. That's
right,
the reality.
But you would have to prove in court that rap music is responsible for the decimation of black communities, which would be really silly, because you can look at black communities before rap music ever existed and they were not doing so well. There might be something else that did something there that might still be a problem.
We can just flip it back. We can just because the hammer and sickle is not banned in Germany. Communism is not banned in Germany.
Communist parties, actually, it's funny you bring that up. The KDP or KPD is banned in Germany.
Why were they banned?
They were banned because, like I said, this is a specific rule. I think it's Article 21 in Germany, which says, look, if you were running on a platform of dismantling democracy, especially if this is like hate speech, and when you're saying
banned for trying to dismantle democracy,
right? And some of that includes hate speech that says Jews shouldn't be able to vote, or
yeah, so it's perfectly willing. When you're saying it's like, well, show me where the ideologies led to a lot of deaths. Well, like communism's led to plenty of deaths, but that's still not banned in Germany.
Well, wait. It is to the degree that you're saying, if it's a hate speech symbol that has that precedent. Now, maybe communists are saying the hammer and sickle is like allowed to be flown. I think that's different, yeah, because it doesn't have the same history in Germany.
Communist parties, and the parties are actually extremely big. Like even my country, like Spain, France, all of these countries actually have communist party with the communist flag, like literally. And the thing is, and you guys need to be a little bit smarter about it. I know it's a debate. We don't believe in what you're saying, right? And Sarah, I'm getting better. You see, I told you I was getting better.
You're doing great.
I'm telling you this, right? Everybody believes in gun laws until the Black Panthers get the guns. Now we need to change. Now we need to change laws. Oh my God!
I also hate Ronald Reagan. I'm on your side there.
Once again, the reality is depend if you guys are going to give this power to these people, and we know they are easily corrupted because they work for lobbies, work for the big pharma and all these people. These people are going to pass laws that are going to be biased towards their side. And like Teriak said on the beginning statement, everybody loves a dictator that does what they want to do. Everybody loves the king that does exactly what they want to do. As soon as the king says, you know what? Why don't you go back to the kitchen? We will depose them. This is unfair. Right?
Well, that's why I'm so confused, because you keep going back to this argument of like, we don't agree with the bad dictator, we don't agree with the bad authoritarian, which I agree with. But is this then an argument to say that we shouldn't have any laws that restrict any amount of hate speech? Because it seemed like you kept agreeing the cross-burning one was okay, but then you not. So like, are you okay with some of these laws and the way they're implemented, or no?
Yeah.
Well, because I still don't have I feel like I don't have a clear answer, and this is not me trying to strawman you. I'm like,
it's like hate speech, but then we're talking about calls to violence. It's like
right, but the problem is that some hate speech can be classified.
If hate speech is an actual thing, why are you talking about calls to violence?
I just want to kindly remind you again that we know how I feel about interruptions. I've let a lot of them kind of slide, but let's be mindful. Thank you,
Yeah, shut up, Teriak.
I'll let you finish your thought, but then let the others respond, please.
So if you're saying, first of all, again, no one is arguing every single thing that could be called hate speech should be banned, or at least I don't think Neve is saying that. I'm definitely not. My question is to you, do you think that certain amount of hate speeches should be banned? Your answer is if it's a call to violence. But my point is that this, what is a call to violence, is not always so explicit. That's why they had to have a Supreme Court appeal case in 2003 to say, actually, it turns out that burning the cross is a call to violence. And even then, some of the Supreme Court disagreed. Even Ruth Bader Ginsburg didn't agree. So my point is, clearly, there are not fine lines on all of this. We can draw lines. We have to trust the court system to draw some of these lines. If you don't, then that is where the disagreement comes in, where you're saying, well, because any of these people might be beholden to, like Fatty said, Big Pharma, or some of these people could be corrupt, or we could have an Andrew Wilson, make these crazy Supreme Court judges, therefore we should never legislate it. That's where we disagree. But is that what you're saying, or no?
Yeah, so this is why I called you out for this, because you're basically trying to shoehorn in hate speech into the you're talking about calls to violence, like is this a threat and all this stuff. But if hate speech is a standalone thing that should be banned, then defend it. Like, well, what is hate speech? What are you classifying as hate speech? Because you seem to be pulling in all these things that we've already conceded. Yeah, calls to violence, that's not protected speech. So you're trying to reach so hard.
No. The point is that we're not arguing that every single hate speech should be banned, right? Because I could say someone saying there's clearly a very hyper politicized stuff about LGBT stuff, and people might say oh, LGBT needs to be eradicated. That is probably hate speech, but I don't think it should be banned, because especially in the context of today, we're looking at people that are hyper politicized, and they're not saying, well, they might be, but a lot of these people are not saying kill every gay person. They're saying, hey, I think this ideology is harmful to children and I want to get rid of it. And while I don't agree with that, I don't think that is an explicit call to violence. The point of the call to violence thing is that clearly things that aren't explicit calls to violence can result in violence. And the question is, are you okay with drawing lines around things that aren't explicit calls to violence? You seem to say yes. And if that's the case, cool. But if that's not what you want to talk about, we can talk about something else and whether or not we should be able to ban certain other parties.
So again, I'll reiterate, what you're trying to do is you're trying to smuggle hate speech into speech that's not protected.
What do you?
The point is, the whole point. Burning a cross was protected up until 2003. Is my point.
What I'm saying is, I'd be against pornography, right? But I still don't think the government should ban it. They don't want the government that level of power. So, like I said, to reiterate, stick on your hate speech, because anytime you can point to hate speech and say, well, this led to violence, well then it's no longer hate speech. It's called to violence.
Well, why is it not?
Stick on hate speech. Yeah.
Teriak, you acknowledge that, okay, so I think we can all agree that the United States does not define hate speech, but you acknowledge that it's defined in the international, different countries define it, right?
I still don't know what this whole concept of hate speech is, if I'm honest.
Okay, so why don't I tell you? Why don't I tell you which country and how they define it? So Germany, Holocaust denial, incitement to racial hatred are criminal offenses under the criminal code. Okay, that's Germany. France, laws criminalize incitement to discrimination, hatred, or violence based on race, religion, ethnicity, gender, or sexual orientation. Holocaust denial is also illegal under one of their acts. We can keep going. The UK outlaws hate speech related to race, religion, sexual orientation. Recent amendments cover online hate speech. So Sweden, Norway, Finland, laws criminalize expressions that threaten or insult based on race, religion, sexuality, etc. So it's not the case that there is no definition. It's the case that you're relying on the United States' ability to be ambiguous around this claim and their inability to define it, yes, to reinforce your slippery slope argument when we're making a more comprehensive argument internationally, freedoms of speech as whole. We're making a nuanced argument, and we need you to acknowledge that nuance, because if you can't, you're making the absolutist position, and you have no definition. You have no ground to stand on.
So where is the call to violence in denying the Holocaust?
So in Germany specifically, when you deny the Holocaust, because of the precedent in Germany where they have so much like undeniable evidence when they educate every single one of their citizens on this, and when it is just this like totality, like, yes, this happened, this is factual, the only people who then at that point deny the Holocaust are people who are trying to further Nazi ideology and spread that and to hurt people. That's what they've determined in that country. I don't think you could do that here. I think there are a lot of, Joe Rogan brain poisoned people who question the Holocaust because there's just a lot of, dumb propaganda online. And they're like, oh, was it really 6 million? Was it 5 million? But the difference is in Germany, they have that history and they have that context. And so they've made that decision. So even if I don't think we should do that here, there's a clear way where it's not explicit and it's still considered a call to violence. That's hate speech that I think is okay to be banned in that country. So if you're not okay with that, then we could debate about that. But it seems like you're confused on to what hate speech even is.
So when Joe Rogan brings all these misinformed people to say a bunch of things about everything and anything, should he be prosecuted by that, by platforming such people?
Just one sec, Fadi. Just
misinformation.
Again, so you intentionally did not answer my question. I asked you, is there a call to violence in
so I think in the context of a German citizen doing it, yes, that's what they've determined, and I agree with the way they've done it.
Please explain the call to violence for denying historical
so
event.
I'll explain again. So it is so historically factual, and they educate everyone on this, that it's at the point of you denying the historical fact, the only people at that point in Germany that are doing that in the way that they've determined, and the people that they do prosecute, are the ones who are just trying to sow dissent and spread, anti-democratic messages and, spread violence that would hurt minorities, immigrants, or Jews. And that's what the point is, that at that point, with that context, that's the only reason anyone there is doing it, versus, like I said, not that in America, which is why I'm not okay with doing it here.
Yeah, so point proven exactly. With the right government, with the right context, you'll do the same thing. Like this whole kind of thing of like, oh, the slippery slope is a fallacy. We've just seen it right here. It's like, well I'm an American, so I'm not okay with it. But if I was German, I would be okay with it.
Why don't we use,
doesn't that seem like a very strong line in both of those cases that's not slippery at all?
My speech shouldn't be like depend on my geographical location. I'm not allowed to say certain things or whatever.
So here's the thing too, Teriak, is that I think that a judge might make a very strong case for you in your defense if you were to go into Germany and to deny the Holocaust, because you don't have that context, right? You don't have the education, you don't have the background. You could just be some dipshit Joe Rogan watcher who just went out there and wants to question things, which is very different, and which is why I trust that there's a legal precedent, there's a history, and we can look at these things on a case by case basis. When you say like, oh, are you okay with this law? Like, that's why I brought up the cross burning thing, is because you and I and everyone can think of 1,000 reasons why in certain contexts burning a cross is totally okay and shouldn't be thrown in jail for 5 to 10 years or whatever they do now. But the problem is that if you don't have that law at all, that means the KKK can get away with burning a cross, which then results in a family getting lynched, right? So while
wait a sec, how did we get to that? Like, again, like that's a crime in of itself.
Yeah, the lynching is the crime, but the burning a cross is a crime too.
Because again, like, because either way, whether they burned the cross or they didn't burn the cross, they would have lynched the person anyway.
No, that's not true. Sometimes they burn cross to intimidate and scare people out of the country. No, it's burning the cross is the illegal thing based on how the judge rules.
Yeah, and then you went on and added, it's like, and then they go and lynch somebody.
Right, because of the lynchings, because of the intimidation of kicking people out of the states is the reason why the speech itself has been outlawed.
Let's move off the cross. So, for example, the Confederate flags for a lot of black people is very offensive.
Which thing is, sorry?
You guys were fighting to keep slaves. Like, are you okay with banning the Confederate flag? Since first they were the losers, like the Yazis, right? They were the losers. They were actually traitors to the government. Like, are you okay with banning the Confederate flag that for a lot of people, black people and liberals, is considered a hate flag? Are you guys okay with that? Neve and Mr. Soy.
I'll go first if you want to think about it, Neve. I think that at the current state, I would not be upset if they banned the Confederate flag. They've already banned it from government buildings.
You would be upset, sir, if you were.
Well, hold on. Let me finish, because I think that I have talked to a lot of people that are completely ignorant, and the reason that I think the German case is so different is because they have such a robust education system on something like the Holocaust, but we don't have that for slavery here. There's a lot of people who actually get taught in the places where they do fly these Confederate flags that actually the Confederates were good guys, and I don't think the onus should then be on them based on their failed education system to go against that symbology and ideology. So I think that there needs to be a transformative parallel, that America has the same background and context as Germany to be able to justify banning it or at least making it illegal.
So
I don't think that exists yet.
Slavery is not enough.
A bunch of people. Do you know what the lost cause is, Fatty?
400 years of the grandpa, the dad, the son, all of them being slaves because they were born into it is not enough.
It's not, because a lot of people don't even understand and know that.
Fatty, you just don't have the context.
They don't. Like, do you know what the lost cause is,
I have
Fatty?
a spatula
Not an
on my
argument.
You can't keep over
It's
talking.
not an argument. Smack yourself with it, because this isn't an argument.
I want now, because this man is a wizard with his words. He answers things in a way that I don't understand why, right? But
I'm sorry, I can speak slower if it would help. But here, let me say this, Fatty.
Just answer the questions and stop thinking.
Well, sometimes things don't have really easy answers. I know you're used to like ChatGPTing everything, but like sometimes we have to explain our ways and are a little more complicated. Fatty, do you know what the lost cause is?
Fatty.
I
Hold
lower
on,
my
hold on,
microphone for you.
hold on. Go ahead, Fatty.
There was 400
Let
years
him
of
cook.
400 years of people being ripped from their motherland, brought to the United States, and be enslaved for 400 years. We know all the atrocities that happened there, respectfully. This was not a 2-year period, a 4-year period, a 5-year period. This was 400 years.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like, I don't think you guys understand, like, the difference is...
Fatty, let me ask you a question.
One second, please. I'm finishing. The reason why the people that bear the Confederate flag, and this literally written in the letters, is we don't want to give away our slaves. Period. We're not going to do it. There was more reasons, but that was the main reason. We want to keep our slaves. So this flag can clearly be seen as hatred if you are a descendant of slaves on the United States. Now that we established that, and is actually as a president, so I qualified it to your terms that there's history on this country that actually, on your country, actually, that shows that this can be considered as like something that some people will look at a clear offense and hate towards them. Are you okay with banning the Confederate flag? Yes or no? Please.
No,
say yes
and let me say why. Because if you look at I just said no, and I'll explain why. So if you look at, for example, Pew Research on how many people in America think that the Civil War was about states' rights and had nothing to do with slavery, I think it's like 48 or like 51%. And there's this thing called the Lost Cause movement that was promoted by like Daughters of the Confederacy that was going in and changing books in a lot of these southern states and telling them that actually slavery wasn't that bad. It was a benefit. And, those black people lived better lives than they would have in Africa. And so because we have this very flawed, corrupted, and like fucked up education system, I think there's a huge swath of the population that doesn't have the context that you just explained, which I agree. If everyone understood it to be that, if every single person understood that the Confederate flag was the symbol of hate and a call to violence, then I would be okay with banning it. But we simply do not have that robust education system here. And there's a bunch of fucking dipshits who are unfortunately subject to a bunch of indoctrination that's been going on since the 1860s. So no, it's not the same thing.
So just to be clear, you're okay with banning the swastika in Germany because the German people are educated, but the American people aren't educated enough, so we don't ban the Confederate flag.
Even worse, they're educated in the wrong direction. Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course.
Neve,
they're just not educated.
Yeah,
they're not. They're literally not.
Go ahead, Neve.
I wanted to take this to the conclusion of the slippery slope fallacy argument that they're making. So I think that the reason we shouldn't ban any sort of hate speech content is because is built around this idea that we're all going to be up in arms when the First Amendment protections are infringed upon. And I think I wanted to posit an example. Something that's existing right now are many examples of the Trump administration potentially or likely violating First Amendment protections to the negative, like to the obviously impacting its citizens in a negative way. However, because this is my opinion on this, I am still supportive of a process that would take these separate instances all the way to the Supreme Court, at which point I would support a ruling. And I say this as to point out that even in the worst case scenario of your slippery slope fallacy, we still acknowledge that the process exists. And we're willing to support whatever conclusion comes as a result of that process. There's a consistency there. So we can explore, specific examples if you're not sure. But I think in this instance, like, again, still looking for more than oh no, like you're not gonna like it when they take away your speech. I might not, but I'm gonna support the process.
Do you think the red pill space should exist, Neve?
I think that it makes sense.
Wait, Neve, don't answer that. Make them answer your very good question. I just pivoted so hard.
Hold on.
It's an easy question. It's an easy
Okay.
question.
Go ahead. Neve.
That's an easy question. I think that it makes sense that disgruntled men would want to connect with each other online in a social setting that they define the parameters for. I think that's okay. However, going back to my question, at the conclusion of your argument, your sole argument, the only argument you both have, the slippery slope fallacy, is this idea that I'm going to be up in arms when my First Amendment protections are impeded on. And I'm telling you that the case is that we acknowledge them as likely, in my opinion, that they may be First Amendment violations, and we're going to support it through the process that exists, the process that we're making the argument for, which will ultimately define whether it meets the criteria for X or Y or Z, right?
But that was not the point of my question. My point of my question is, do you think that the red pill content creators in the manosphere space
Fatty, fuck your question. It's irrelevant. It's super irrelevant.
Yeah. And
it literally is.
Together. Do they promote hate speech? Yes or no?
They just promote things that I think are not conducive to actually improving their lives.
Like,
they don't need
misinformation. You just answered that.
I wouldn't say that it's misinformation. I wouldn't say that it's misinformation. For example, if you come onto the internet and Teriak says the best way to vape on screen is to do it 15 times in succession without allowing yourself to breathe oxygen after, I might say that you're wrong, but I wouldn't actually have an issue with you doing that. And I would say that the red pill community is exactly that, right? Like vape 20 times in a row and whatever. Your prescriptions that you want to make them. I don't give a shit.
No. Give us please. If you told me, is the feminist movement promotes hate speech? Absolutely. Been doing that for 10 years. Can you provide
me an example?
For example, with the Believe All woman, it is hate speech. Respectfully.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how that's hateful.
No. Respectfully.
Can we talk about why the reason that Believe All women exist? Can we talk about that? I think it's important that we do, because the burden of proof.
Listen, if I was them Fatty, I'd try to go all this kind of shit.
I think it's important. I think it's important that we brush this thing, because you're going to continually bring up examples that you don't really care about. You're throwing them away, but they're making my point. They're not making yours.
Respectfully, you asked me for an example. I gave you an example. We're not going to sidetrack from that. I answer your question.
I'm sorry, your arguments are not working for you.
The feminist movement promotes hate speech. Everybody know, but a lot of them do.
Believe all women. Can we litigate that?
I don't want to talk about it. It's my opinion.
That was your example.
Why would you bring it up? We're talking about hate speech. That's the example.
I kind of want to understand why it. I really
I do too, Sarah.
I can tell you why it exists. If Fatty can tell me why it's hate speech.
We can go there. We can go there.
We're here.
We can go there after you answer my question. Again, Neve. Is the red pill space in the manosphere, do they promote hate speech?
The red pill? No. They promote speech I don't like. And I'm going to be clear about that. But no, it's not necessarily hateful in nature. However, I think at points it teeters on it, because I think there is obviously some sort of domestic acknowledgement of the sort of rhetoric and the impact it has on the population and the people around it, whether it's young men, X, Y, and Z. So they're not outright calling this there's a word for it. I think it's actually the manosphere or the red pill is actually on some like FBI watch list designation list. I could be like, please look this up. Take this with a grain of salt, but I actually think
like the Black
that it
Panthers
is
were on the watch list too.
something to that effect. And I'm not this isn't a hill I care to die on. So I just want you to be able to tell me why believe all women is hate speech. How is that hateful to men?
Because he actually puts men in extremely amount of danger. The premise that woman, like the premise that say believe all women, is literally discriminating and putting half of the population in extremely amount of danger, because every time a woman opens their mouth, that person can incur in jail, character reputation, self-deletion, a bunch of things. I can be called a rapist by a woman, and tomorrow teriyaki, because he doesn't stand rapist, he comes to my door and he deletes me. Is literally connected to violence in psychological levels, physical levels, and even taking your freedom away. So the fact that this is pushed is actually hate speech, because it's hurting and it's a call to action to other people to do things to these people that might be innocent. It happened before.
Can I steel man your position so you know that I'm approaching this in good faith?
Neve, is that a fair explanation or not?
Well, I just want you to know that I understand. So what you're saying is that if we're willing to throw away the credibility of men by saying something like believe all women, if we're willing to ring them through the ringer when we don't know if a woman is lying or not, or if an offense has actually occurred before that offense has been litigated, that is a wrong thing. That is an incitement to violence to men.
It will be like saying all women are liars.
Okay, so can we talk?
Everybody that the woman comes forward, she lies.
Yes, I understand, Pity.
That puts the woman in danger.
I understand your argument, and you agree that I understand it as well. So let me refute your argument, or at least give you some context so you understand. So believe all women is a term that is specifically applied to the context as it relates to the legal process. Because when you get into civil litigation or litigating things that happen behind the scenes in a one-on-one, the burden of proof is put on the woman. The woman, without a reasonable doubt, all the man has to do is introduce 1% of doubt into the circumstance for him to actually get away with the persecution. And I say this because if we look at the legal process and its outcomes for women, and we only provide women with the support and the care and the need to address those harms in these SAs, at the conclusion of the court case, then essentially what you're doing is we're withholding sympathy. It's not that we're believing all women. When we say things like believe all women, we are engaging them with the understanding that there is some sort of emotional harm, and we're willing to take them through the process to see if there's a conclusion or some degree of closure. But the reality of that circumstance is that even if they're waving their flag, dragging the credibility of the man through the dirt, throughout that process, in all likelihood, the man will get away with it. It's actually the case that in SA court cases, a lot of the times, the men don't even need to tell their side of the story whatsoever. They literally will just have to poke holes in whatever the woman is saying. And if anything is inconsistent, then they get away with it. And it's flawed. So do I think that it's hate speech to give the women in the circumstance for her emotional feelings and to provide her with the supports necessary to carry her through the court process with 3 words, believe all women? Do I think that's hateful in nature? Absolutely not, because it gives consideration into the court process that is completely stacked against them and that will carry them and drag them through re-traumatization and relitigating the actual events just to get to the conclusion where there will be no conviction. Do you understand that?
So you're telling me there's no convictions at all for SA or Grape or anything like that?
I'm pretty sure.
I'm saying that the burden of proof in civil litigation.
So your last statement.
I will say I'm very agreeable with what Neve is trying to elaborate here, that it is a very difficult process to go through in order to get a conviction, right? To make the accusation, that's easy. You make a report, but going further beyond that, it's a lot of, you carry the entire burden of proof. So what she's saying is that the starting litigations, the whole believe all women, like that starts the process, and they presume she's telling the truth just to allow, because she has to prove it, right? So I wouldn't consider it to be hate speech. It's a very far reach.
But the problem with that logic is this, right? First of all,
interpretation.
The courts are actually stacked in favor of women. We all know that if men and women commit the same crime, a man will get 20 years and a woman will get 3. This is what happens all the time, every time.
Of
so
sentencing for hold on, let me I do want to interrupt it because we are way outside of the scope, so I want to make sure we're very clear on what we're saying. When it comes to crimes, like actual like other crimes, right? If you rob a bank, if you murder someone, if you do something like that, yes, I will agree with you that the sentencing for women is probably significantly less. Okay, I agree with you and I concur with that. Yes. However, in regards to SA and grape, those are completely different factors built in, and it is 100% stacked against her. She carries the burden of proof and all of those things. It's very difficult to get a conviction. That's I forget what the percentage is, but like
1% of doubt will
but in terms of the
beyond a reasonable doubt,
the conviction rate of the accusations is very small.
Can I add something, Sarah? Too, it's like it's not.
He was replying to now. I was interrupted, and Sarah, I learned it from you. This is a fallacy, right? This is a fallacy. The court system is stacked against the person that is the accuser, because the burden of proof is that. So if you replace woman for man,
that's what I'm saying.
Well, it's still stacked against the man because the man has to prove it. So believe all men too. It's not about the fact that she's a woman.
Fatty, you don't understand.
No. Stop. It's not about the fact that she's a woman. It's about the fact that she has to make sure and prove it without unreasonable doubt. It should be clear. So if I am the man and I have to go through the same process, that's a fallacy because the man is going to face the same problem.
What is the fallacy?
The fallacy is you are saying that just because he's a woman, because she's a woman, she will have an uphill battle to actually prove something. It's not because she's a woman, it's because she's the accuser. If I replace woman by man, he will have an uphill battle because he still has the burden of proof. So it has nothing to do with gender, it has to do with you being the accuser.
Wait, Fatty, I agree with you. First of all, I think believe all women is a terrible slogan, just to be clear, like because of the misinterpretations that's going to result from it. But the problem is here, it was more of a movement against the fact that, first of all, most rapes are perpetrated against women, although men do get raped, absolutely. But most of these rapes do. And in this totality of this large group of people that are discouraged from coming forward, and when they do come forward, this is even before you get to the court system, people say, oh, what were you wearing? Was it your fault? Like, did you get drunk? And the point of that movement, whether I don't agree with the slogan, the point of that movement was to say, let's not discourage people from trying to press charges against the people that committed crimes against them. It's not the specific thing.
And you are wrong once again. You know why? Because it's more probable if a man gets raped or DV'd, it's more probable that the woman goes to the cops than the man. The man will be quiet and cry on the pillow. Okay. Either he's touched by his uncle or he's victim of the missing
That has nothing to do with what I just said.
Okay.
So you are, no, 1 second. So you are telling me that if there's a DV case or there's this man, like I know a bunch of them that were 13-year-olds being touched by a woman that were 18, 19, or 20, you are telling that it's more probable that men go and say, please, Mr. Cop, she put her hands on me, than woman? Are you sure that you want to die on that hill?
I would die on the hill that women get raped more, but I wouldn't die on the hill that men don't get raped.
He did it again.
What I just said no to your I'm being good faith about this, dude. Come on.
You just don't like it.
Yeah.
Can we agree that?
We shouldn't have even gone down this tangent in the first place. Like the main thing that we can show here is like this whole kind of like fallacy that they're trying to do. They're just doing a fallacy and all this stuff. It's like you can look up videos right now in London when the riots were going on. On the English side, they were shouting Allah, Allah, who the fuck is Allah, right? Then they start locking people up for chanting that. So where's the violence there? So it's like if there's a violent crowd and they're chanting anything,
they were rioting.
You can turn around and just say, well, this chant is inciting violence in
right,
future,
but we don't necessarily agree with
then
that. Then
also you have in England as well, people who were literally getting sent to prison were silently praying in their heads outside an abortion clinic. Like that's the way that like England's at the moment. So, like I said, you can keep saying it's like, oh, slippery slope fallacy. Slippery slope fallacy.
There's a difference.
There's actual tangible things that we can point to, and like I said, it's always a contradiction in the way that's policed.
So many times, dude, that we're doing this on a case-by-case basis. If I go into
the Yahtzees is a finish.
Thank you. So I will say like, oh well, the Yazis thing is banned in Germany and because of the context and all stuff. But hang on a second, what about communism? What did the communists do to the Germans when they were invading at the end of the war? All the horrific shit that happened from the communist side. But the hammer and sickle is you can wave that shit. They have their own communist parties, all this shit.
The American flag's not bad.
It's always an unequal
Hamburg,
standard that this shit gets. There's always an unequal standard this shit gets applied to, and that's what me and Fatty. Well, the hammer and sickle is still flown. No problem.
Yeah, and the American flag can be flown too, and America destroyed that country in Dresden and Hamburg and all sorts of other places. But the difference is that the egregious genocide committed by the Nazis is so unprecedented and so ingrained in their history and in their education that is the line that they have drawn, and they don't go beyond that line. They don't say, oh, communism too. They don't say all America too. They don't say, oh, every other country that's invaded Germany. Yeah. And the reason for that is they have that specific line, and then the judges rule based on that specific line. And I'm saying that specific line is something that I understand and might be okay with in that country, which is different from you bringing up, for example, this UK example, and I don't know exactly their law, but I might not agree with the idea that if you pray in front of an abortion clinic, you should be thrown into prison, although I doubt it was that simple. If it was, yeah, I don't agree with that. This isn't slippery slope if we're able to say that there are nuances to...
I'm pointing to the slippery slope fallacy, because everyone was saying this like 10, 15 years ago. This is where it was going to go down.
Do you think that cops should be allowed to arrest people?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, but what if the cops were, directed by an authoritarian dictator that had laws that said, hey, if you do this thing I don't like, we arrest you? Then why should we have cops, right?
What? The laws enforce laws. It's not about the cops, it's about the laws. We, like, the person that is going to go and puts the handcuffs on you.
Do you trust the government to have the power to throw you in jail?
Do I trust no, I don't trust the government. Absolutely not.
So should the government be able to throw you in jail?
Sir. People are fallible. The government is composed by people, so the government will be fallible too.
Right. So you agree that the cops have the power?
So you need to limit the scope of the government because once again, today they come for me, tomorrow they'll come for you. There's the slippery slope, and that's why it shouldn't ever reach.
Well, they'll never come for you because you're in Portugal. But my question is, do you think they should have the power to lock people up?
We actually have hate speech laws here, but it's like I'm telling you, this debate was done by the second minute. Drill is heavy in the United Kingdom, especially in London. These people are killing each other, right? And they don't say nothing because it's convenient, right? Right? But as soon as we turn this into praying in front of an abortion clinic, this is so...
Dude, you're gonna have to rename yourself Skinny. You're running around from so many different points. Like, you gotta stick on one. Come on.
The point is, the government, the best way to predict the future is to look at the past. We have those laws, and the government is not consistent with them. They allow certain things, and then they will go after other things. So, if people have literally neo-Yazis parties and meetings, and nobody knows nothing about that, and then Dave Chappelle does a skit about trans, and now hey, Mr. Dave, we need to talk with you in this little office. Right. It's problematic.
Absolutely. So going back to what you said the prior history is a predictor of future behavior. You said that, right? Okay. So you agree with us then? You agree with us then because people saying things like HH or Yahtzee speak in Germany. Again, acknowledging prior behavior and language, it kind of is what you said.
No.
And then litigating that for the future because we understand the previous outcomes. It sounds like you agree with censoring hate speech.
No, because you are inverting the rules. Is not inverting.
Okay, that's what you said. That's what you said. I don't know.
1 second, please. It's not that me saying, "Hey, little mustache man," cause people to do things. This happened afterwards. This is a symbol. This is a reminiscence of the past. So when they were doing that, nobody looked at the German flag and says, "This is crazy. Why do they have that flag?" They used that flag for decades. They went to the Olympic Games. They will do the Yahtzee salute on the Olympic Games and all that. Nobody thought nothing about it. So it was not that caused what they did to the smaller people. Is the opposite. What they did to the smaller people caused those symbols to be
you can say Jew, right? Come on.
Wrong. So me just having a swastika on my chest that doesn't say, "Oh my God, we have to stop him. If he has a tattoo over, we need to go ahead and we need to subject to him." But if I come on Reddit and I do a manifesto about I love to curb stomp black people because this is when we actually agree with y'all. Y'all should do something about it. So respectfully, I'll ask this. What is the movie? This is a great movie.
How do I turn on captions?
No. Yeah, I know. What is the American
History X?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
Great movie. Beautiful movie. Are you okay with criminalizing and putting people in jail that have neo-Nazi symbols tattooed on their body?
Or are you talking about the movie should be criminalized, or people that look like Edward Norton in the movie?
Edward Norton, he had like a giant one on the chest, right?
Yeah.
Right here. Are you okay with rounding these people up that have neo-Nazi Yazidi symbols on their body and put him somewhere else? Because
Well, we've already litigated this, Fetty. In America, I wouldn't be, because it does not have the same history and not the same education as in Germany.
Can I disagree? Can I disagree? No, America is okay with this, and they're currently doing this with anybody who has some form of tattoo on their body that is in alignment with a particular, unfavorable group in society. You are getting thrown in a bus and you are getting deported or sent to another country. Now we can argue whether or not that's right or that's wrong, but it's kind of already happening, Fatty. Like, you have to at least acknowledge that.
No. Hang on a second. Let's be very clear here. Deporting them back to their home country is far less than taking them to a camp and working them to death. Let's just be clear.
Yes,
you're right, because I think actually if we talk about CCOT versus like criminal like work camps, I think work camps would actually be more humane because they're putting people in 80 like
now
CCOT is a torture camp.
Massive trouts of water where the only opportunities they have for like human engagement outside of their own cell is like sitting in a thing with like imposed prayer. So I would argue that at least with work you would derive a degree of purpose or a mindset that would persist, feeling productive. But I don't know. I think it's actually worse.
And those showers were not comfortable, I guarantee you. Let me just say one thing, right? I want to ask a question to Neve, because Soypil keeps saying, because we don't have a history of that, the history is not as strong.
And the education specifically, to be clear.
Hey, Neve, who did the United States fight on the Second World War?
The world? Germany?
No. There's a name that comes to my mind, right?
The Yazidis.
Italy.
What did they fight in the Second World War?
The Axis forces. Yeah, is that what the answer you wanted?
No. It rhymes with khakis.
Yes. Khakis? What the fuck are you saying?
Yeah, rhymes with khakis. Because he keeps saying we don't have enough history and yes, you do. You
really don't.
Fatty, I'm lost. Fatty, this,
come on, man.
Your 200 IQ argument went way over my head. I'm going to need you to slow this down, please. Please, I'm begging you, just explain this one more time. Slower. You're talking so fast.
Yes, I will. Sorry for my rushing.
Thank you. No, thank you.
He's saying that the United States, he would agree with it, but the United States don't have that history, right? Because they don't have enough reinforcement when it comes to that history to condone it. The United States fought the Yazidis. We won because of y'all. Y'all dropped 2 nukes on other people on the other side of the planet.
Respectfully, Fatty. Respectfully, I think you really underestimate the degree to the German history and education system and how good it is, especially compared to ours, and how thoroughly they do this. Well, because you don't understand, and that's fine. I get it. You've never been to Germany. You don't know these people. But if you talk to a German and you actually get the actual education and the precedent that they have, it's completely different. I bet if you did a poll, Fatty, I bet most people in America probably wouldn't know what a Japanese internment camp is, and that was in our own country.
Hey, Soypil, let's see if you are the Super Saiyan of disingenuous. Do most American people know that the Yazidis were their opponents on the Second World War?
I hope so, but I bet not if you polled a bunch of people.
Fatty, they already shot themselves in the foot because they're already there's other countries where the swastika is banned as well.
It's banned,
they don't have context, they don't have history. But
I might not agree with them doing it there.
The American citizens are too uneducated.
Was it a world war? Was it a world? Was it a world?
I'm the only American here, and I'm allowed to disparage Americans.
I'm glad you brought that in. I'm glad you brought that in, Neve, because then that goes to Fatty's point, because you fought both wars.
Justify bans in multiple countries, I wonder.
Yeah, I would
so why
guess.
is it not banned in
maybe-
America?
Wait, hold on, Terry.
Why is it not banned in
I would
America?
guess.
Why is it not banned in
Teriyaki.
America then, Neve?
I would
Why is
guess
it not banned in
teriyaki
America?
that
Because
the
they have
countries
the
that wait,
freedom
Neve,
of
please,
speech,
Neve,
they're
please. I have to wait, Neve,
That's
Neve,
what,
Neve.
this is what me and Fatty's
No,
whole point have
teriyaki,
been. The
teriyaki.
fact that
No,
we
wait,
live in
you're
the
misunderstanding this
and
completely.
we can see all these
Third
policies in place.
Teriyaki.
Reminder to stop talking over each other, please.
Teriyaki, I
Thank
would
you, Sarah. As I
posit
was saying,
that if you go to
the
see
fact
which of
that-
the
the fact that like in these other EU countries they banned it, but in America they
Were they
didn't.
Nazi
And
occupied,
the
Teriyaki?
key differentiator
Were they Nazi
is the fact that
occupied?
America has free speech.
No, the key
but
difference is
likes
those
of
people might
England
be
don't,
Nazi occupied,
Sweden
Teriyaki. I
doesn't,
think that might have
Germany
something to
doesn't.
do with it.
And then when we actually analyze this country, it's unevenly because like the communists were in that war as well, but
Okay.
the hammer and sickle's never banned.
Neve, I know you were trying to say something as well. Did you want to chime in and then to Soy?
Well, Teriyaki just acknowledging the nuance of the circumstance is just making our argument. I don't know why he thinks that's making his
No, I
argument.
destroyed
His
the
argument
nuance.
is the slippery slope conclusion that they shouldn't be litigated whatsoever. There is no nuance, right? That's our position.
No, I destroyed your
So he
nuance,
keeps
'cause
making
you're-
our
you're-
arguments
yeah,
for
your-
us.
your nuance-
We're seeing a lot
You're-
of. Sorry,
yeah.
I'm still talking.
You're
Teriyaki.
Hold
destroyed.
up,
Yeah, yeah.
please.
I'm still talking.
Please.
Between Fatty and Teriyaki, I don't even need to be here. They're making my arguments for me.
Yeah, so let
I'm
me
just
explain.
going to conclude on that. I think that
Okay, yeah, you
you
conclude.
should bring one.
So the
Bring an
whole point
argument.
that Soy Pill was saying is like, oh yeah, well, like in Germany, I understand why it's banned because of the context and like the fact that they fought the war. But then he also mentioned Sweden, other EU countries banning the swastika.
Were they Nazi occupied, Teriyaki?
That basically destroys his logic for
Were
banning
those
in,
countries
banning it
Nazi
in Germany
occupied,
and only.
Teriyaki?
Yeah, like technically, like all these countries were, but like the whole of Europe.
Yeah, it's
almost
almost
at
like
one
they have a
stage.
very different history than America does with it.
So
and
you're
they
saying-
understand the
then
evil of
Neve
Nazis
said-
that
then Neve
America
said-
doesn't
Hold on,
because
yeah,
not,
Neve-
America was never
hold on,
invaded.
hold on,
So
hold the fuck on. You're talking over each other.
well, Teriyaki
Stop
won't
it.
shut up, Sarah. I can't help it.
Teriyaki, land the plane.
Yeah. So, like I said, I was kind of explaining the whole thing there, where like Soy Pill gave us this original logic that because it's Germany and Germans are so well educated and have their such good history, I guess that's it's understandable why the German done. But then why did Sweden do it? Why did all these other countries do it? And I don't think Sweden was actually Nazi occupied.
Might
But
not have been.
when you look at Fatty's point that Fatty was making, the fact that America actually fought in the war against the Nazis, surely like the America would. But then Neve pointed out that they have freedom of speech in America, and like I said, just look to what's happening in England.
So
Like-
okay,
like
so
this
let me
whole,
explain
like,
this because you
it's
guys
slippery
have a
slope is fallacy.
fundamental no. Okay, so you have a
I'll finish
fundamental
my point.
misunderstanding. So you have a
I'll finish my
fundamental. So you have a
No,
fundamental
plane
misunderstanding.
Plane
Yeah,
landed. Soy, please continue.
Okay, so Teriyaki, you have a fundamental. You're right, actually. I think Sweden wasn't Nazi occupied, so I actually might disagree with it there, depending on how their education system is. But the fundamental difference. Yet you can claim victory every time I like. I know you're allergic to nuance, but please listen. Okay, so Germany has a very specific history about it. It's not just if the Nazi concept was involved in your history at any point, therefore this is the history required because you guys don't understand their education system where they take every high schooler to Buchenwald or Auschwitz or some concentration camp and show them the extent of the evil of the Nazis, where they hammer this shit into their fucking skulls. So at the point when they're adults and they're denying the Holocaust is a clear repudiation of fact versus an American who understands, which again, I even agreed. I don't even think most Americans could tell you that the Americans fought the Nazis in the 40s. Given our current education system, this is not the same level of education. This is a completely different situation. And I'm trying to show you that in this country, where there's a very clear precedent of this history taught, which I think you don't have even a close to understanding of the scope of their education, versus America, where we're not even fucking close, or maybe some of these other countries where I might even agree with you, depending on how Sweden teaches this, depending on how it works in their country. Maybe I don't think that they should have hate speech bans on the swastika, but in Germany, it's very, very clear.
Yeah, so like I said, the whole kind of counter logic where it's like, the context of the country, but then there's these other countries that have banned it anyway, and this is where we point to. This is not a slippery slope fallacy. We've pointed to the slippery slope that's happening in Europe as we speak, and then they're just like, they have no answer.
My answer is I might disagree with the way certain countries do it. Is that allowed? Do I have to say I have to agree with
No, you're not
every
allowed.
hate speech
No, you're
law
not
on the
allowed.
entire
Fine, stop.
planet, or else
Yeah, you're
I'm
not allowed.
just concede the debate? Is
Yeah.
that what your argument is?
Yeah, well, you already have, but yeah, Fight was talking.
And
Fatty,
one thing
did you want to chime in?
Yeah, I just want to say something. If like when they say if everybody is a PDFL, nobody is a PDFL, like type of you accuse everybody of being the something.
Hash.
If you are going to make sure that you do what they are saying that we should do, for Iraqis, an American flag is the ultimate enemy. Like 1 million of Iraqis got killed in the invasion. If you go to Palestine and you show the art around Palestine and you show the Israel flag, they will look at it as they will look at that flag as we look at the Aussie flag, right? So where does it stop? If you go for one, you have to go for everybody, because everybody will have a hate. I'm a woman. Arrest the white man. I'm a black man. Arrest the white man. Oh, what the white man? Probably you guys really be in trouble.
Well, Fatty, I think you're kind of making our argument, which is that it is entirely contextual, and you can't have a global hate speech law. Like, obviously.
No, but that's the point. You are opening a precedent, and as soon as you open that precedent for going after a group, you are going to extend that to all the groups that are engaging into, I don't like those people, these people should not be around us, right? Because that's how war starts, is you galvanize the population and says, we are the good guys, those are the bad guys. And then we have laws in Texas, for example, that now if you are a trans person, they are trying to put you on a scam list or whatever the bug that shit is, right? It's like something ridiculous. I don't know exactly what is the premise of that.
So
but is as soon as you open the Pandora box, are you sure you're not going to be next?
I understand the sentiment of being worried about the slippery
I
slope.
will arrest you, by the way, because you dress funny.
What?
I would, like that helicopter ad, I will put you in jail for that for 2 years.
You would jail me for this? Oh, I'd
And
like to
that's worse-
see you try,
that's
Fatty.
worse than the
Come over to America and say it to my face, you no gun having European. All right, so listen,
I
okay?
am tall
No.
too, sir, but I'm fat. I don't know how to fight.
Hey, you might have the weight advantage. I don't know, man. I don't know how tall you are either. Look, here's the thing. This is why I keep bringing up the cross example, because at one hand, you're like, well, we agree, incitements to violence should be banned, which is like, okay, good. That's why I said that in my opening. But then I say, okay, clearly there are examples of this where it's not a incitement to violence, and we do have to rely on the judge's, discretion and appellate courts to figure out whether or not this non-explicit call to violence is indeed a call to violence. And so I'm okay with banning burning the cross, given in America the context of cross burnings and what resulted after and what they mean. Now, I'm not okay, for example, with saying anyone who lights 2 sticks of wood in a 90-degree angle on fire should go to jail for 5 years. And the reason we have these judges and we can trust them in this process is that we have to know that there is some sort of discretion used here. Now, if you're not okay with any of that discretion, then that's where we disagree and we can have that argument. But it seems like...
I don't trust it. Will be pick and choose depending on the person that does it, like you said.
That's everything. That's why I asked if you think police should be allowed to arrest people.
We don't like Fatty. Fatty goes to jail because he did a little cross on his backyard, like he was doing whatever. This is actually what we're talking about, and you still you go to it. You know they're going to abuse it. You don't trust.
Can you show me an example of the cross burning being illegal, being abused?
Wait, what?
Can you show me an example where making cross, after 2003, Virginia versus Black, cross burning is illegal? Have you shown me an example where some corrupt judge used this to abuse like some person who didn't actually mean to incite violence?
I will say if somebody puts 2 dildos on a cross and set them on fire, the ramification that probably will happen, like something very wrong would happen there. But other than that, sir, I don't carry crosses around. And since Jesus actually was here, I don't think nobody carries crosses around and says, I'm going to put this on
There's
fire.
a certain group of people in America that do it. I know you're not American, so you don't know about them.
So they should go to jail, right?
If they burn a cross, yeah, I think if you can show beyond a reasonable doubt that this is a true threat, even though it's not a call to violence explicitly, they should go to jail.
Perfect, fine. So Kanye West, when he did Jesus Walks video clip,
there are very many carve-outs for art, actually.
That man should go to jail, right?
No, because there are carve-outs for art, and the judge can make that discretion. In the same way that people in Germany don't go to jail if they have swastikas in their art and it's perceived as not a call to violence, and the judge makes that discretion. And right now, I do trust them to do that.
And I think the context of the situation is incredibly different when you consider we're burning a cross on somebody's lawn versus we're burning one in a video to symbolize, some historical hatred or a real life lived experience. I think those are considerably different. Obviously, the principle is considered with nuance and context, the word you're both allergic to. I know it's difficult.
No,
but I think those things are obviously considered.
I agree with you. Nuance.
Then you concede the debate.
No, because the nuance will be this. If I like you, you are allowed to do it. If I don't like you, you're going to prosecute it. Like, look at this, right? Look at this. We keep talking about Hunter Biden and Hillary Clinton emails and Donald Trump 33
I know,
for
shit.
like the felonies. Like
You're on the wrong
people
side.
People will ignore things that is happening to their side, and they will literally try to punish and to condemn people that are doing the same thing on the other side.
Fatty, should the government be able to decide what is self-defense?
You know where this is going to actually start being implemented? Right here on YouTube, where we are. It's not going to be just private companies deciding to ban you or to demonetize you. It will be actually the government coming around and says, you know what, Terry, hey man, those things that you said about women, I agree with that. Like,
that already exists, Fatty. You're not allowed to like go on ISIS and promote your terrorist group like on YouTube, and that's not just because of the privacy. That's literally like illegal.
No, but is it what? Is it a private company or the government?
The government disallows YouTube from promoting or platforming terrorism. Yeah.
So if I have a KKK member on my show, am I going to jail, or is it going to jail? Like, what happens there?
I think you can host KKK members, but there's a little more nuance there.
Isn't
Sorry,
that the
I
terrorist
keep using
organization?
that word.
Wasn't them the terrorist organization?
Well, I think.
Don't think
context
so,
comes into
because
play.
the Duke. What is the Duke dude? He
David
ran
Duke.
for
David Duke?
yeah, he ran for government, and didn't he win? Like
So people.
No, I'm just saying he would be representative of that group, and so in a vacuum, that group existing is one thing, but the actions that group partakes in is what we're concerned about, right? The speech that they participate in.
And this is what I'm telling you.
It's almost like collective entities can do bad things.
Fatty, do you think the government should be able to decide whether or not something is self-defense when you murder someone? Or sorry, not murder, when you kill someone.
Murder is not never self-defense.
No. So that's why I said kill. Excuse me. Yeah. Do you think the government should be able to decide what is self-defense?
Is already.
Yeah, but why should they be able to if they'll just say, actually, I don't like you, so what you did was murder?
Because no, you have to prove it without unreasonable. Like, this has to be proven 100%. You can't just get this slippery slope. Like, what you're saying is this, right? And let's walk with me. If I go to court and there's 1% of chance that I didn't do it, nothing will happen to me for the most part.
That's how it works with the hate speech laws too, actually.
No, it's not, because the hate speech laws is depending on interpretation. I can say woman belongs to in the kitchen barefoot and pregnant because I care about my woman and I want her to put her outside in the hot, going on public transportation and be in danger. And your interpretation will tell, hey sir,
yeah, but I'm not a judge.
This is no, but there's the thing. The judges are people like we.
Judges decide self-defense stuff too. Should they not be allowed to do that?
No, because once again, you are doing if people are going to break the law, should we have
No,
laws?
if a judge can decide what is and isn't self-defense, don't you think they'll weaponize that against people they don't like to say, hey, actually, this is not allowed and you're going to jail?
To a degree, they will.
Okay, so why should they be allowed to legislate it?
Because
they have juries.
No. And even further than that, murdering somebody or deleting somebody is something concrete. Right?
Self-defense is not concrete. There are several thousand cases going on, I promise you, where they're arguing back and forth as to whether or not it was justified. I mean, look at Kyle Rittenhouse, right? Like, should a liberal judge might say, actually, you know what? Or a liberal jury say, actually, you know what? I think that wasn't allowed. I think even though you were running away and those people were threatening you, I think you did murder those people and you should go to jail. So why should we let them legislate self-defense?
Wait,
there's jury. This is what. Go ahead, buddy.
No. I just want to make sure this appeal, right? Because this is actually a massive. We already lost, but let me throw a Hail Mary. Let me see what I can do with this, right? If you are saying that, what did you say?
He said this is a Hail Mary because we lost.
Yeah, this is a Hail
Sorry,
Mary.
I speak Portuguese English. My bad.
Yes, thank you very much for translating from me.
I just wanted to be sure I heard that.
But if you have, and we know absolute power corrupts absolutely. Of course, these judges are going to be biased, even on the like OJ, for example. And we know OJ did it; he escaped. But the justice is fallible, and you want, especially on violent crimes and on things that are extra, for the justice to be there, so there's a line to protect the best of us from the worst of us. Hate speech, me and Teriyaki already said, as soon as it gets to a threshold where it might be violence actually happen, might be actually incite people to do it, we are okay with it. We already considered.
But then you disagree with the cross thing, right? Which is what a Supreme Court ruled.
But when it's ambiguous, when it depends on interpretation, when we don't know if Kanye did a provocation or it actually was inciting violence, when we have black people saying pew pew, I'm going to do it, and that was what y'all said. If it's not something evident, if it is not proven, if it's not something that we can see specifically, I think we shouldn't do nothing.
Let me jog your memory, buddy, because I said this in my opening. I said that. Let me see the little last thing I wrote here.
Oh, you wrote things?
Yeah, no, I wrote it down.
Oh, he's
I
going
said,
back to the script again, Fuddy.
You guys write things? That's crazy.
Well, yeah, no, it's crazy because I know I said this out loud, but I said, I think, well, yeah, so I think that certain hate speech content should be banned by the government so long as there is a very strong burden of proof as to the line that must be crossed and when it is crossed, because I refuse to hand over the reins of power, blah, 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 blah. So I explicitly said that I do think, wait, let me finish. I explicitly said that there should be an extreme burden of proof of this because I don't agree. I agree. If it is ambiguous, I do think it makes it easier to abuse. And that's like the idea that self-defense is not ambiguous, buddy. There are so many of these cases. Like I said, the reason I brought up Rittenhouse is because even though that was a very clear-cut case, which I don't even know if should have ever gone to court, that was litigated, that was pushed around, and half the country still thinks he murdered 3 black people when he didn't kill a single black person, right? The point is that judges can and will abuse their power at certain points, and they do decide how the law works, and that's why they're in as appellate court. That was why you can keep going up to the Supreme Court. And so what you're saying is, well, because a judge could misuse this power, we should never do it. And I'm saying a judge can misuse their power in other cases too, and that's why I think it's okay, because we have the system of checks and balances, to implement certain laws so long as the burden is extreme.
I got this. So let me ask you something. Can I prosecute my political opponents that way?
Like, should you be allowed to, or can you?
No. Can I, as a judge, politician, whatever, can I prosecute my political opponents by saying, we are going to put Niv in jail because she deleted somebody and we have to discuss if it is. Can I prosecute? Can I prosecute my political opponent? No, I can't. Niv has actually to do something or be massively framed for her to actually do that. I can literally prosecute every single one of you on this panel if I have power enough and say, Sarah platforms people that are she's the next one. Niv, I saw Niv talk shit about Ilkan Ali and Fatty. She's talking about, like, I can go after y'all just because y'all talked and said I don't like X, Y, and Z. So it's very different when you can literally put things, get things out of thin air because all of us say dumb shit every day, all day, and you can prosecute your political opponents, their families, and put everybody in jail like it happened before. And again, you guys know what I'm talking about. It's not the same thing as saying judges fail, so we shouldn't legislate a murderer. That's not the same thing.
So do you disagree with the concept of true threat then?
Was blocked.
Do you disagree with the concept of true threat?
This is what they've been doing all debate fighting, because like I said, the debate prompt is hate speech content, right?
Yes.
But then Soypill has just spent wasted the whole debate, wasted all our time essentially talking
dancing.
about calls to violence and all this kind of thing. Like all that stuff is not protected under free speech. So the fact he's like, but what about this hate speech that is called to violence?
But you disagree with the cross burning thing, so clearly you don't even agree with what the current law is, right?
No. Like again, look at the top of the screen. What does it say?
Can you answer my question? Do you think that they should
look at the top of the screen?
Do you
and
think
what does
they
it
should
say?
go to jail? The top of the screen says, "Do you think they should go to
what
jail?"
I want
for
you to
burning a
do
cross?
is talk about hate speech. Not
That is
calls to
hate
violence.
speech. Is burning a cross hate speech?
Well, technically, it's classified as calls to violence.
Okay. Well, yeah, because you guys can't like give me an example of hate speech with this very basic
thing. That's not a call to violence that you want banned.
Hate speech and calls to violence are not mutually exclusive, dude. If that's what you think.
I would like to go ahead and move into our closing statements, and by all means, we can definitely expand the scope of conversation when we go into open panel. I think there's a lot here on the table that we can pick and prod from. So, Fatty, if you'd like to kick us off with your closing statement, please.
I'm saying our opponents literally are seeing the current administration do some egregious things to people and violating, like just based on opinion. I think my opinion is so these people shouldn't be accessed, should be deported, should be a visa revoked. We know what an authoritarian regime or very close to it does when there's legislation to actually back it up. I appreciate that Soypill uses the cross like Yu-Gi-Oh uses Dark Magician. Every time he's in trouble, Dark Magician, and then we go back to talking about the cross again over and over again. But the debate, they lost the debate on the 5-minute mark when I asked him, should we prosecute black rappers that literally, like, there's a bunch of that, there's a bunch of threats, there's Eat 'em Up, there's Eater, there's 50, I will do something to you, and they said no, we shouldn't. So if black people can talk about deleting other black people and celebrate it, it's not banning nowhere else, nothing, all the other groups shouldn't have a special
Thank you, Trash Dan.
because now
okay,
it
I'll
hurt
ask.
our feelings, so we need to do something about Kanye. No, respectfully. So thank you very much. Shout out to my partner in crime. We did a great job today. Suck it, Neve. And sorry, I still late your motherfucking head, but I appreciate it.
0-2.
Teriak, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just seeing throughout the whole tonight, like Soypill was like trying to talk about fucking like incitement to violence, all this kind of shit. Look at the debate prompts. We're talking about hate speech. The example's literally Yee song, and again, like Fatty's done it multiple times. I got them to admit it multiple times. They wouldn't ban the Yee song. The whole concept of like hate speech. I'm just gonna like try to pull a wool over your eyes and try to talk about stuff that's not protected speech. Because like otherwise, what are we talking about here? Do you know what I mean? Like if it's a call to violence is your question, then like that's not protected speech. Do you know what I mean? Well, again, like I said, I kind of think they figured they were in a losing position, so they just tried to use dirty tactics. But yeah, like I said, like hate speech is free speech. If it's a call to violence, then it's call to violence. It's something else. The speech is under a different category. And to say try to muddle the water is just the way it's how they do it. They do it all context. You know what I mean? And then they just smuggle in all this shit, and they claim it's causing violence, all this kind of shit. But other than that, appreciate you having me, Sarah, as always. It was an absolute pleasure. And yeah, shout out to Fatty for the spatula that came in handy because he was cooking a lot tonight.
Oh, goodness. I will say shout out to the spatula. And thank you for being the best supporting role for this evening. Neve, go ahead with your closing.
Okay, so I'm going to do a bit of a reiterating here with some new context having participated in this conversation. So hate speech content should be banned by governments when it is at odds with the protections or guarantees of any political system. Those who favor the freedom of speech absolutist position do so holistically and without the understanding that freedom of speech has never been honored in its entirety. Being that only one of us on panel is in the US, 3 of us are not, it's reasonable that the lens applied in this debate, given the nature of the debate, would be global in nature. With that in mind, I've applied like a nuanced lens to the discussion. I've tried to infer which country when. And the strongest argument, I would say, would be the United States First Amendment laws. They would be the most permissive of most speech because they don't outwardly define hate speech. But even the United States is constantly and consistently guilty of political violations of the First Amendment. And even in those circumstances, I believe that they should be litigated like anything else. With a Supreme Court conclusion that ideally I would have to support whether I like it or not. Actually, I don't have to support it because I'm not American. But if I was, I would have to live with the conclusion that they take. Like I said, Teriak and Fatty, their entire argument is the slippery slope fallacy. Any attempts that they had to sort of engage with the context, because they're not applying their own lens, I think is just a win or a tally in my column, because we're asking them to engage with the context and the nuance of the system, and they're arguing for, again, just a full-blown anything goes sort of circumstance. So I think they conceded quite early. I would say within the first 10 minutes, not the first 5 minutes, Fatty, but that's just how I feel. So we'll leave it there.
Thank you, Neve.
Now I know where your name on YouTube is, Neve Liar.
And Soypill to you.
Yeah, the problem with this debate is that my opponents, our opponents, don't understand what hate speech is. They've kind of defined it in this way, where it's this Venn diagram of two circles that don't touch, that can never be, at all overlapping, and therefore, anytime hate speech goes into the part that is violent, it is therefore not hate speech anymore. Therefore, every single thing that we both agree shouldn't be banned, therefore shouldn't be banned, and therefore we can declare victory just on principle, intrinsically, tautologically, from the concept that hate speech can't be violent speech, which is ridiculous because I gave an example, the cross burning, the reason I kept bringing this up, and it is my trap card, draw your last pathetic card, fatty, is that unfortunately that wasn't a crime before. That wasn't a call to violence, or at least the American government didn't think it was, and it had to change in 2003. So some of these things can be reclassified and say, hey, this hate speech is something that should be illegal. And that's why we wanted to have this conversation in the first place, is to see, hey, is there some sort of limit that can now encompass different types of speech that aren't encompassed right now? I think Ye's song is probably ultimately harmless. I would not want him to be, thrown in jail for getting the choir of people all singing HH, because I think it's hilarious, and he's probably just schizophrenic. Fatty says that judges shouldn't be allowed to, determine what hate speech is because they could use it against their opponents, which I agree is a concern, which is why I want the burden of proof to be very, very strict, but they could do the same thing with all sorts of other crimes, and that does not mean we can't even try to legislate this stuff. They're allergic to nuance and context. They don't understand history. But you know what? Apparently this is the strategy now. I declare victory. I win. I'm American. And you know what, Teriak? That's stolen valor. You're not allowed to wear that hat because you're Irish. So I demand you take it off. And also my super chatters have asked me, do you have sheets on your bed?
Yeah, how about take it off?
Answer the question.
Before you go, can you say dark magician before we go? Dark magician. Look, I just wanted to hear it once.
You want me to say dark magician? I play dark burning dark cross magician. In attack mode.
Yes.
Nice try, Kaiba.
Fatty used pot of greed.
I knew this was going to be a fun bunch, and you have not failed my expectations here. Like, you have succeeded my exceeded my expectations. And I love all of you. I love all of you. All right, to all of the viewers in the chat, I am going to go ahead and drop the link for anybody who wants to hop backstage for open panel. The link is going to be pinned to the top of the chat. And while you are all shuffling backstage, I'm going to go ahead and read through some super chats, get through a few of those. To the panel, if you have something quick to say to it, a quick response, whatever, that's fine and dandy. If you have nothing, I'll just keep moving on. All right. Rude Mudcrab in with the big 5. Neve isn't streaming. Boot her. I thought you were going to stream this.
I thought I was too.
She knows she was going to lose, so she didn't want to be embarrassed in front of her crowd.
Oh.
I mean, the series would have been tied, Fatty. I think the last time we debated, I won. So on your platform, actually.
And you know what's hilarious? Now you know
you
what
picked the judges. You know what's hilarious? You picked the judges. Oh my god!
I picked their friend, and then he rigged the election. Now you know what actually power there's to people.
But it's interesting to say that, Neve, because like I've never actually heard of someone like actually lose a debate online. Like everyone seems to win debates online.
It does not surprise me that you are under a delusion that no one ever loses debates online. That is not.
No, like even speaking to like lefties, speaking to like people I don't like they don't seem to lose debates. Andrew never loses a debate. Like
I will
never seems
actually
to
here's the ruling. Here's the ruling. You all lose. The chat always wins. Understood?
Who's chat? Okay. Who's chat?
I don't think chat has ever declared victory, Sarah. So I disagree. No, false.
The ghost of. I can never say it.
Pinochet.
Thank you. Says with a big 10, hate speech, is it real? All hail the bearers of the blessed slurs, men of renown, breakers of soy libs. May their enemies mess themselves and cry potently forever and ever. Amen. Thank you so much. Rude Mudcrab with a big 5. Even though that HH song was kind of bad, that shit still slapped. I will agree. When I've
been humming the chorus.
I know. And I'm like,
I'm Jewish.
I'm
Jewish and I'm humming the chorus.
So catchy.
Kanye is talented.
It's because of the beat. I was actually surprised because Tariq wanted to debate these, and I went and listened to it. I was like, oh shit! Like this sounds good.
Yeah, it's not. It's catchy.
It's catchy. Yeah, it's catchy. Yes. Mm-hmm. But we don't condone behavior.
No, we don't condone the words used in that, but the beat, we could take it and make a remix with some other words. Player one with the big 5 says, if that's the case, is Whoop That Trick a call for violence? It won a best original song.
Hey, I'm telling you.
I think that a lot of rap music, and I didn't get to talk about this as much, I think there's a lot of nuance in that art, especially when it's describing like past gangbanging behavior. But it also, Fatty, I will grant you this, it does promote, gang, or at least glorify gang violence to a degree. I don't think that's necessarily grounds on whether or not it could be banned, but they did that in the 90s with NWA. The cops would like shut down concerts when they said fuck the police, and I don't agree with that. I think that's a little over the top, and I think that judges shouldn't be allowed to do that because it's not an explicit call to violence in so much as it's maybe an expression of anger. But that's the problem, is we do need judges in the legal system to come in and make sure they're doing the right thing and determining whether or not this is crossing the line or not. And I'm glad that we've retracted that line.
And I'm actually appreciated that you acknowledge that, because think about it. Black people killing each other, that's fine. Fuck the police. Woo! Hey, guys, come here and talk with us real quick. That's the point. That's the point.
K2 keep on trucking in with a big 10 says, when the Neo windmill of friendships came, Toledo, they didn't cause any violence. It was the counter protesters that were fighting the police and burning their own neighborhoods down. That all.
So he means neo Yahtzees. It's funny, I've never heard it called the Neo windmill of friendships. But yeah, okay, if they didn't do violence, this is why, by the way, you're allowed to have neo-Nazi protests in Germany. It's allowed. You're like allowed to express that. They don't ban that explicitly. It depends on if now the iconography might be banned, the salute might be banned. But there's a reason why they keep catching AfD politicians at these marches and protests. It's because those are allowed. And if they're not doing violence, like they've determined that's fine.
That's fair. Credible Hawk with the big 10 says, why is Soy Pilled allowed on these panels after he's proven he's willing to manufacture proofs as a means to an end? Once a liar, always a liar. You can't take anything he says on face value.
My first response is Canadian, so opinion disregarded. But second, actual real response is that the one thing I've ever manufactured is because Rob entered and engaged in a bad faith tactic of, if you don't have this opinion in the past that you can't change, I will never talk to you. So I countered his bad faith with my bad faith, which cancels out, actually.
Fair. I felt bad because I specifically kind of like invited you to that open panel, but I didn't know you guys had like a
beef
hard
history.
Beef.
Yeah. Apparently, I don't know. You seemed really upset by it. And and I will say this. I didn't know to the degree that he really, like, the fact that I felt bad. The fact that he like went like, oh my God, wife, come check this out. There's a good faith lib. Like it's like I fucking told him the tooth fairy wasn't real. So I'm like, I'm genuinely feel bad about it. Like, I'm like, look, I think your tactic was bad faith, but unironically, like if someone did that to me, I'd just be like, whatever, okay, I guess you lied. But he was genuinely like excited about it and then had that excitement stripped away. Like I told him we were going to Disneyland and it was actually the dentist. So like, I don't like making people feel like that, even if the context of it is your fucking, rhetoric on this is stupid. I do feel bad. So thank you for at least giving the attempt to build the bridge again, even though you won't accept.
That's
kind of canceled you.
And Sarah, why do I have
it was a unilateral cancellation.
Why do people talk about my spatula, but they don't talk about the cup that this man is using for drinking water? Have you seen that? I only noticed, like, what the hell
I'm
is that?
thirsty. I need a lot of water. Do you want me to leave every 10 minutes?
Jesus I got a big things bigger than my damn head.
Yeah, I have big things too. Yes.
Christmas list, actually. If one of my audience members buys me an even larger mug,
Does yours
I will
have
use
stars
it.
on it? K2 keep on trucking in with a big 5. Soy wants to hop in a Rory. Soy wants to hop.
A Rari. Like a Ferrari.
Oh. I'm like, Ryan, what the hell?
Oh, Sarah, this is not an insult. You're so white.
I am. And I also live under a rock. So when people talk about all of these big things that happen around the world, I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but thank you.
That's humble.
T.O.
We
with
respect
Big
that.
10 with the tomatoes in the chat. Thank you so much, T.O.
T.O.
Rude Mud Crab says with a big 5, so you can see the debate.
Mm-hmm. That was when Neve said it. I remember that one. It's like we just have to tell them they concede and that we won. Actually, we have to just keep saying it.
It's the concede the debate meme. When people are going through lines of logic, you just throw it in there and it throws them off. You win every time, essentially.
Oh, I'm going to use that. I'm just going to use that on every panel and be like, so you concede the debate, all of you. I win.
Concede the debate.
When we're done,
K2 keep on track and says
Remind
Yee's new album was number one
give me the
in
heavy
Israel
mug.
the first week it was released on Spotify. Was it really? I highly doubt that.
I don't think it was on Spotify, but it was very popular.
Yeah, I don't think it wasn't initially. We were looking for it, I remember. And I know there's like offshoots that exist on each platform, like trying to get around it. The acoustic version, if you will. But yeah, I don't know. Lots of stuff.
Wow.
Acapella.
Damn. Jess, and I want to point out Kissy Cat sending out 10 Raging Tomato memberships. Congratulations to all of you lucky lottery winners. Jess Gerald with the Big 10 says, just paying the Mater tax. Can't stay. Have a good night, chat.
Mater tax.
Crown Wire with the Big 5. Censoring incitement to violence is not hate speech. I want the pro-hate speech laws side to actually argue for why mean words should be banned.
So, I mean, if they were expecting us to come in here and make, I think there are some people in America, but not very many, that are just like, oh, you shouldn't be able to, like, say slurs. This is an incredibly unpopular opinion. I don't agree with it. I don't think Neve agrees with it. It's not good, because I think that does feed into the fatty argument, which is, yeah, if you can just say I'm offended and then get like, oh, you're offended, we should ban that. That is an insanely like immediately slippery slope that's going to end in just, some sort of blasphemy law. And that's why we don't advocate for just any word that someone is upset by to be banned. It has to cross a certain threshold. The problem and the nuance is that sometimes those words are not so explicit, and we have to determine where that line is.
And this is why Andrew Wilson is going to play this tape on your trial in 15 years. Remember when you
Andrew Wilson is going to die of lung cancer or being too fat by the time that happens.
Oh my God.
Jail.
His doctor prescribed it.
Say Cheese sends in the 5. Neve heard Fatty was going to cook with his spatula, so Neve moved his studio into the kitchen. Genius.
I think Say Cheese for misgendering Neve should go to jail for 10 years. That's my
there
unironic position.
Oh, I kept thinking that was in his his Fatty's studio. That's what I was thinking.
No, you're too you're too charitable.
Fatty hasn't been in a
Very
kitchen in his
audience,
life. Actually, that's a lie. Is your table in the kitchen?
I have 2 tables, and never use the kitchen is the table. I use it like twice.
Okay. Teriak wouldn't answer the sheets question, but Fatty, do you own more than one plate and fork?
Oh, goodness.
What sheets?
Do you have sheets on your bed, Teriak? Someone asked me that to ask you. Okay, guys, sheets confirmed. I don't know why that was such a debacle, but yeah, but Fatty, do you own more than one fork?
More than one what?
Fork.
Yes.
Okay.
What the hell?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I lose a lot of them actually. I don't know why, but I have a bunch of them.
K2 keep on track with the Big 10. All I'm hearing is Soy and his debate partner wants to call for end of the First Amendment because all other countries do this so they can imprison their political opponents.
I think that's what we want, Neve. We just want to imprison our political opponents,
I have 4 words. Retard hit the link. Is that 4 words? Well, yeah, I think that's all I got.
Ooh, fight back.
Fair enough. Tard Wrangler with a big
Great
20. Neve, who is we, when you say acknowledge the legal process, didn't the leftists just spend the last 4 years waging lawfare against Trump to keep him from getting elected with things that wouldn't have been pursued otherwise?
I to be honest, as it relates to the actual content of the laws, I think the idea of lawfare is subjective, and I think it's a political term that is weaponized to try and flip the script on like this perpetual victim mentality that the Republican Party tends to operate under. It's just consistent with all of their other language and all of the other narrative framings that they have. However, I am still open to having my mind changed. If there were any sort of what do you call them when somebody is being charged for something that is like you're being charged for wearing green pants, like it's like not a trumped up charge, but a inflammatory case. There's a word I'm trying to use here.
Kangaroo court, spurious.
Like a stupid
frivolous
charge. We'll call it. Thank you so much. If it was I am open to the possibility that some of the laws and the litigation were frivolous in nature. This isn't a hill that I would necessarily want to die on, but
I'd say Donald Trump should stop committing so many crimes.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I think so.
We're just going to get through just a couple more, and then we'll go ahead and open the panel. Tard Wrangler again says, statistically, women are actually more likely to essay. Women sympathetics often change parameters, i.e. only penetration, which will deceivingly help paint women as the victim class to further push feminism. We can hold this talking point for the open panel if you prefer, because I know this will open a whole nother can of worms.
I think fair enough. I just want to say, I think the difference being that, women acknowledge victims, men don't. They laugh at them and they further, force them into situations where they don't have the opportunity to address those harms. Women acknowledge the harms. And so maybe the rhetoric and, the communication around the prevalence of essays reflects that, maybe.
Yeah, I agree with Neve. It's one of those things where, like, it could be the case, I don't know if we have good stats on this, that men are sexually assaulted at the exact same rate. And I think that, the idea that, men can't be vulnerable and they're too scared to admit fault is a problem. Men should come forward. And I'll say this, believe all men too. Believe all men, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Vincent sends in a big 20. What word spitting Raging Tomato and Beige Shirt are saying is women lie all the time about essay. If they aren't lying, they use a broadened meaning coming out 20 years later because it benefits them in some way.
Yeah.
Good thing the cards are stacked against them. Good thing the burden of proof exists. That way, people can't get physically put in jail. I mean,
just based on the woman's testimony, right? That's the other thing is, like, when you're talking about that, I think something that was missed is some people interpret this as like, oh, the court must believe the testimony no matter what. Like, no matter what, you just have to go with whatever the woman says, which is not how they do things. The idea is just don't discredit them right away when they come out so that we make sure that they can be litigated against. Not, hey, everything a woman says is the truth. They never lie. Because let's be real, guys. Women lie all the time.
The problem is not the court, is the path to the court is so long that by the time that you get there, you are Johnny Depp, you are Jonathan Majors, you lose $100 million, everybody's against you. And if you are unlucky, not just sponsors and money, you actually might be touched. So it's not just the public, like it's not the court, it's the court of public opinion probably can devastate you because you'll never recover from that again. Like everybody's going to think that you are either a wife beater or you are a rapist.
Didn't he do it though? Didn't Jonathan Majors actually do it though?
He ran away from her.
Yeah,
we can agree that the length of the court process.
He ran away from. I don't think if a victim is respectfully, right? You guys can talk about all the evidence and all, but if I'm beating up a woman and she starts running and I run from her for 3 blocks, I don't think I'm the aggressor, to be honest. But
if that's what happened, sure. I don't know the whole case.
Eddie, we can agree that the length of the court process is not productive for either side, and I think that it benefits the lawyers in the process involved. It doesn't benefit anyone else. I think,
yeah, but what kind of lawyers? What are you saying, Neve?
Okay.
You're trying to say something about the predominantly lawyer class?
No, I'm.
You're saying that we extend the length of court days
culturally
to make money
blind
because we're greedy.
Okay?
Is that what you're saying?
I don't even know.
Culturally blind.
Okay.
And let's go ahead and we'll get into open panel. I know everybody up here is staying for this fun portion of it. Let's buckle up, sit down, shut the fuck up.
Ooh, this one's not new. That was fun, guys. I feel like there could have been a much harder debate there if those guys weren't so dim-witted, but it was fun. No, Teriak is actually MAGA. How do you pronounce your name? Delta S2 Wolf? Welcome from the tomato chat, Kate. Ryan loves these? Alright, Ryan, we're not friends anymore. Your super chat didn't get read out? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll let her know. I read your super chat when it came up. The nuance allergy drove me up the wall, yeah. Dakota says, so I would give you money, but I'm broke. I'm sorry, that's fine. You don't have to apologize for being broke. I'm surviving, guys. Hell yeah, we got the knife in the chat. Fred Skull, you and Ryan Getty can have a fight.
Hello?
All right, and just for the record,
Sarah, I have to say something. You didn't read Ash's chat. Someone, my chatter chatted.
I was just getting ready to say, I will get through the rest of the super chats as we go through the open panel. So don't worry, everything that's up there, unless it's under 5. Under 5s, we don't read, we simply display them on the screen. So if you want me to read your voices out there into cyber world, I will do it for $5 or more. All right, everybody here is pretty familiar with the rules of my panel. I'm in charge. You shut the fuck up when I start talking. Don't interrupt, but have fun. I love you all. You can choose to boot people off the panel if you want to. However, everybody on the top of the panel, Neve, Soy Pill, Teriak, and Fatty, are all protected and cannot be booted for the entire evening. Everybody below me can. So have at it. Have fun. And Wick, would you like to kick off with your opening thoughts?
Wick, that would be so funny.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Everyone's saying in the Soypill's chat, boot Wick right away. Fair enough. Soypill.
Somebody has some noise on the back.
What do you want, you disingenuous freak?
And by the way, what Fatty Cousin is doing is hate speech. Ban him.
I'm going to hit reduce mic down.
If Fatty Cousin, let me get one of those.
Does somebody have a mic that's... Hold on.
Oh, shit. Oh, fuck. What's up, y'all? Thanks for having me.
Hold on, tied up. You're not paying attention. Does somebody have like a mic that's vibing around or something?
And I'll mute by one.
I think maybe it was Vibe, because Vibe you muted and it magically disappeared. So maybe check your audio, make sure it's coming through your mic, not your laptop.
Do you have something against people with sleep apnea? Or is that a hate speech towards sleep apnea for people?
Wick, go ahead.
Sure. Soypill, you're very lucky. Your opponents are really dumb because you left yourself open for a lot of counterpunches that they just don't know enough to talk about. I guess the first one that comes to mind, as you mentioned, this concept. Look, I'll start this way. The concept of it's a slippery slope fallacy is interesting because it's not a fallacy if the slope is actually slippery. And I think we can demonstrably see clearly that a lot of the tools that have been used to combat speech and types of speech that we dislike have been weaponized by the Trump administration against speech that we absolutely do. And I'll give you a good example. Soypill, you brought up how YouTube, it's illegal to put out ISIS videos on YouTube and provide material support for terrorism on YouTube and things like that. And that's not just a YouTube thing. That's a government thing. Well, look at how that tool, that weapon to combat ISIS has been weaponized against pro-Palestine protesters. Mahmoud Khalil is being deported under that sort of law. That tool, that speech law that we have created and crafted has been weaponized against people, which I don't know about you, but I don't think Mahmoud Khalil should be deported at all.
No, I don't either.
Continues to happen, and we can go through like this idea of that the government should be trusted to regulate speech. Personally, I don't want anyone telling me what I can and cannot listen to, who I can and cannot listen to, who I can and cannot engage with.
Okay, Wick, let me ask you a really easy question. Wait, hold on. You can before we move on, because I want to address that point, right? Like, you're gonna come in here and call Teriak and Fatty stupid when you yourself just made the dumbest point, Wick. Because I know you're gonna disagree with this, Wick.
You literally repeated what we said, but we're stupid.
Hold on. No, I'm defending you guys. I'm just calling Wick dumb. That's because he's my friend and he knows I'm joking. All right, look, Wick, would you be okay with ISIS recruitment videos just being platformed anywhere and the government's not allowed to do anything for it? They could just say, "Hey, like, come join us," because that's free speech, right?
With it? No. Do I think that giving the government the power to censor it is good and has led to good outcomes? Also, no.
Okay, so you think the material harm that would come from ISIS being able to recruit Americans through any sort of platform they want is ultimately not as bad as some of these students getting arrested, even if we disagree with the way it's being implemented, because it can be abused. Because this is Fatty's argument. Because it can be abused, we should just never, ever legislate it, ever.
It's not that it can be abused. It's that it frequently is and is currently being abused, and we see it happening right now.
Right. And this is the argument with the self-defense thing. Should we be able to legislate self-defense?
Hold on. Let Wick finish his thought.
Yeah. You keep bringing up these examples like, well, should we let cops not arrest people? Well, we have a whole host of restrictions on who cops can and cannot arrest and what makes a legal and illegal arrest. And we do this because we recognize there's a necessity at times to locking people up. My argument is that there is no necessity to legislating speech. There is no necessity. It is not analogous because these situations are different. And for example, what was the other one you used? Oh yes, self-defense laws. There is a harm committed and we have to litigate that. When we talk about speech, my argument is there's no harm committed.
A harm committed by getting recruited to ISIS? You don't think there's a harm committed?
There's a harm committed.
If ISIS grows in numbers, there's no harm committed.
ISIS grows in numbers.
If a black family has to flee, if a black family has to flee their city because the cross was burned, like that, no one got threatened anything, but they just burned that cross.
Hold on, you don't have to leave a city because you've been threatened.
Okay, but this happened.
just came in on Cash App to boot the guy that's eating. How rude! Thank you so much from Kate. Keep on trucking. Appreciate that.
Trippy Cast was also, to be fair. No, Wick, look, people, this absolutely happened where the KKK threatened. They never said, hey, we're going to kill you necessarily, but they burned crosses to intimidate black people out of cities, which is a direct harm. But it's speech, right? Now, are you okay with that being legislated? The government saying, actually, you know what? I think the
2003 the
Virginia versus Black,
I think they ruled incorrectly, and I think that we're going that it encroached upon people's right to express themselves, because I can feel threatened by a whole host of types of speech. Does that mean that it's actually going to cause me harm?
It's not about what you feel.
And I think
it's
we have
about
to keep a very
the
strict
context.
line, a strict wall between things that might perhaps maybe cause harm and actual harm caused.
Right.
And
So
I
do you
that,
think
when we try to
intimidating
legislate
someone
for
out of a
things that
city?
maybe we have to have a much bigger restrictions than on things that have
Sure.
actually caused harm.
So you have a valid criticism and fear of, hey, what if this is misused? And I totally agree. The reason they were able to rule on that is because they were able to look and say, look, most of the time when they burn these crosses, there's no, oh, I'm just hanging out. We're just expressing ourselves. We're specifically going after black people. This resulted in lynchings. It resulted in intimidation. And so they said, look, based on the way that this works and the way that you do this in these contexts, you are causing harm. This is harm. You are making people flee. You are causing so much fear.
Was what led to the lynchings?
Burning the cross was an indication that lynchings were coming. Burning the cross was an intimidation tactic. And if you're intimidating people and causing them to not be able to live their life, that is illegal. And if you can determine that speech is doing that, and it's a very high burden of proof, then it should be illegal. I think so.
I disagree. I think that we should punish the lynchings. Absolutely. We should punish any kind of physical threat and things like that.
Very brave. I also think it should be legal.
Do you know what a lynching is?
Yes,
I know
it's
what
when
a
they
lynching
take
is.
you. They
I
put
would
a
hope that
rope
you do.
around your neck, your
'Cause
little
that is
round neck.
illegal.
They tie it tight in a noose.
That is illegal.
And they
Murder's always
throw it
been
over a tree branch, and they bring your little clown
Wait.
body up. They throw
Murder
it on
has
the
always
rope,
been illegal.
and then you choke and you do a little jig, a dance. That's what a lynching is. Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
sometimes they
always
tar
been
and
illegal,
feather.
though.
They didn't always kill them, Wick, to be fair.
And Soy Bill's right. They didn't always
It's
cease
always
to be.
bad when they physically assault people. But yes, Clown Man is right. It is illegal, and we should prosecute it and stop it from happening. What
But it's not
happens
speech.
is
We have free speech in America, so we use that. Now, if you turn it into hate speech, that's still not really illegal, except for in the public of in the eye of the public, of course. I mean, it's not illegal to say hateful things, right? It might hurt some feelings, but you can say it. Now, when it
Right, but Wick is
becomes,
going farther than that, Trippy. He's saying that any and all things that even could be interpreted by, the Supreme Court as incitement to violence should still not be illegal. So
Nobody ever Nobody's
Wick
ever
literally
said that
just
free
disagreed
speech
with the Terry
absolutist.
Act.
Like, this
I
is
mean,
what I'm saying.
Wick,
Like, this whole
I
kind of
think Wick is
gaslighting that went on
actually
during the
contradicting
debate.
you right
It
now,
makes no
Terry Act. You
sense.
should
it's
listen
not
to him.
incitement to violence, right? It's incitement to riot.
And look, I missed the beginning of
down
the show,
upon.
so maybe you guys covered it. Do you think that the Hail Hitler song should be banned?
No, I don't think anyone on this panel thinks that.
Careful
that
with
should be
the.
banned.
Can you
Not in
Don't really
America,
care.
no.
Not in America, but you think it should be banned elsewhere? Why?
I think the specific laws, like in countries that define hate speech, if they define hate speech to include some sort of Yahtzee messaging or sort of thing, then yeah, I mean, it's consistent with their constitution, so they
That's
should.
What about
And
solitaire
I'll explain why. Please shut up.
messaging?
I'll explain why just real quick. So if
You want me to give you a country like Germany, for example?
government such as
You don't
Iran,
just
for example,
send this
made
through like a
law-
lens
right?
that's irrelevant.
Sure. But if a foreign government such as Iran made a law saying it's illegal to be trans and anyone who is found to be trans should be thrown in jail for 20 years, would that be a law that you think would be okay?
I think it's not I think it's disanalogous because I think we're talking about a product, being the song, shipped around the world, and certain countries can decide whether they want to receive and distribute that product or not, and that's their decision to do so. And if their decision to not do so is consistent with their constitution or the things that they guarantee its citizens, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, especially when it's explicitly stated.
Should. So what they can do, right, their legal right to do is much different than what they should do. Like, I can say the N-word right now. I could, but I should not do that because it was wrong.
Yeah, the prescript. Yeah, I get
so
this
when we
distinction.
have laws and we advocate for laws, we could say, well, yes, a government can make any law they want, right? Obviously, but should they do so? And my argument would be that they should not do so. So even other countries that want to seek to make a law to ban the HH song, Hail Hitler, can we not say Hail Hitler on here?
I don't know.
We were being mindful.
Okay, I'll try to be. I'm not a verbal coward. That's all.
I'm not too sure.
You didn't say the N-word actually, so you are a verbal coward.
The AHH song. My argument is that they should not do that, and I'll expressly tell you why. Because one, it makes it forbidden, which increases the attractiveness of it. It feeds into the oppressor narrative that these groups all often have, saying, "See, look at it. It's the Jews keeping us from saying what we really believe again," which just reinforces these hateful kind of lyrics and not lyrics, but hateful kind of ideas, right?
Are you attracted to it
over and over again?
Okay, so I can apply what you're saying, Wick, because obviously you're coming from an American lens, but I feel like if you're looking at it from like a German perspective, you would Okay, I mean,
what difference does it make?
Spoken like a true American, but I'm saying if you look at it through a German lens, you might have a different position on that, right? And
but I would be
think
wrong
that
in that case.
Well, Wick, do you agree with the German ability to ban parties when they are so anti-democratic that they would otherwise dismantle democracy?
I don't think they should be banning parties. No, I think
so. Hold on, let me give you a hypothetical. Then this is very cool. Let's cut to the chase. Cut to the chase, Wick. If a party ran on the platform of, hey, as soon as we are in power, even if the majority of the population is going to vote for this party, right? It's 51%. If we're in power, as soon as you transfer the reins of power over to us and we become the president and have control of the military, we're going to kill everyone. Should the current government stop them from doing that?
I don't think they should. Should they stop them from killing everyone?
No. Should they stop them from getting in power? Right? They're like, as soon as we win the election,
they should not ban that political party.
Okay, you're fucking insane, dude. That's
I'm not
so
insane,
wild.
and I'll tell you why.
Soy Pill, do you even believe in self-determination?
Hold on just a second. And Abe, your mic's coming in kind of hot. I don't know if it's plug one.
It's from the 1860s, Sarah. Give him a break.
Australian donation.
True. So hold on. Let me get through a few super chats, and then I want to hand it back to Wick. I interrupted you. Vincent Vincent says Australia has specifically mentioned the banning of Yahtzee salutes and material. Is that true? Australia's a little more.
I'm the closest thing to an Australian here. I'll speak on this. Maybe.
No. Pakistani, maybe.
Wick, my final question for you, Wick, is what's the point of a principle?
You
got another.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to let me finish. So the reason I wouldn't allow the
hold on. I'm going to hand it back. I said I would hand it back to Wick. I want to get through a few really fast because we already are behind. Ash with the big 5, please stop super chatting messages to paint all women survivors as liars. I have a feeling you have no idea what you're talking about. Go Soy and Neve.
Thank you, Ash. We love you.
We love Ash.
And on
Nobody
the edge,
did that, by the way.
On the edge, I believe that's what is it? IBFF Mr. Marte says, I look forward to debating the two opponents on the right plus Flow State next week. Yes, tune in next Monday. We've got another one pinned for you. Nate with the big 5 says, win chat. Yes, the chat always wins.
Shit, they declared it. They did it.
Always. Yeah. Is that your Nate?
I don't know what to say. I guess that works.
And Millennial Mike with the big 10. One look at Teriyaki's physique, and you could tell he cooks a lot of soy. And there was no shortage tonight. He brought receipts from insane English speech laws. One order of teriyaki, hold the soy sauce.
Is he calling you a soy? I think he's calling you a soy boy. He said you cook a lot of soy.
Yeah, no, he's still salty from the debate we had a couple of days ago.
Millennial Mike with the victory lap.
Oh, with the victory lap.
He's dancing on your grave, Teriyak. What do you think?
He lost.
Right back.
Hi, Naomi.
Naomi in with the big 5. Just love for Sarah for holding my horse dismount videos and keeping them safe.
It's her. No.
This message is sponsored in part by...
All right. And I'm going to hand it back to Wick. You go right ahead.
So let me explain why I wouldn't be okay with them banning a party that said, say, oh, we're going to do this and we're going to explicitly dismantle democracy and kill everyone, right?
Yep.
Is because when we give the government the power to ban political parties that they feel are violent threats to their country, they tend to have this expansive thought of that. And we have to remember that any law you craft, any kind of governmental tool, ban,
Could be used
etc.,
against you, yeah.
you have to think of what happens when my political opponents get a hold of this and decide that, hey, those Democrats, and I see a lot of them on Twitter calling 8647 and all these like calls to quote unquote violence, which are bullshit, by the way. The right is such snowflakes on this. They're the soyest motherfuckers I've ever met. Sorry, Soy Pill. Your crown has been absconded.
Don't worry, it's an ironic
They will
name.
use
Don't
this
even need
law
soy.
that you've created to ban the violent, evil platform, and they will apply it to you.
I don't think you
so
need to
you
go that
have
far.
to. The problem, Wick, is you
let
have
me
to.
finish, let me finish just real quick.
Oh,
I'm
so
trying to be
many
as concise
points.
as I can. Okay, I know
God.
I'm just galloping just a little, but please. The reason that I'm scared of this is happening is this happened before in Weimar Germany, where Weimar, to combat the Nazi Party, they made a ton of laws restricting speech, restricting all these things. They got rid of over 200 newspapers. Right? They went really heavy-handed on it. One, didn't work. Two, it
They
gave
weren't very
the Nazi
heavy-handed.
Party propaganda. And three, when the Nazi Party came into power, they used those laws against the people that
Are
didn't
you
like it. It
implying that
became
if they
much
hadn't
easier
done
for
that, the
them.
Nazis would have been way nicer about it?
It would have been much harder
Propaganda.
for them to carry out their work.
No,
Well,
it wouldn't,
I'll give
because
you
they
an example.
dismantled all
Look
the
at-
checks and
look at what
balances.
Trump's
This is
trying to do,
ridiculous.
and look who's
No,
fighting you.
Wick,
long
this is
period of
ridiculous
time, by the
because
way.
the point is that your principle is, well, we should never, ever, ever do this because maybe it could be used against us. However, essentially what you're conceding is my principles don't matter. I will let an entire party just fucking kill me because, like, what's the point of having a principle? Is by the time you've applied it, you're allowing someone to stomp all over you. It's the paradox of
But we
tolerance.
have
I
to-
agree with tolerance, Wick, but
Okay.
unfortunately, there are certain restrictions on that I completely understand. Where it's like, hey, if this party says as soon as they get in power they're gonna fucking kill anyone, I don't give a shit if you think, well, what if someone else did this in a way I didn't like? I don't give a fuck because those people are gonna kill me. So yeah, unfortunately, I think sometimes you do have to put limits on this, and I
Do you
think it's a
that
weird
there
hill
is
to
any
literally
realistic
die
chance
on.
that a party such as you named would come into power in America? That they're just going to kill everyone?
Do I think there's a chance that there's a party that could do that? 100%, yeah. But
And they would
unfortunately, we don't have
possibility
such
or
clear
likelihood
precedent.
of that
or
ever
of
majority
these-
of people in America would vote them in power, say, "Oh, I'll vote for the people that have expressly said that they're going to kill me."
I think that people who
Sorry, Bill.
characterize the Nazis as these like monsters and not normal people who can be indoctrinated into a like very dogmatic evil ideology are doing harm because yeah, I think absolutely Americans could do that given the circumstances, and we're on the track to do it now. We're not as close as like 1930s Germany, but we absolutely could. And yeah, I would be okay with giving the government the power to do that insofar as if those lines are incredibly strict, which by the way they are. The AfD is still not banned as a party despite having many neo-Nazis in their leadership. They
Listen,
still have
Soy.
not met that burden of proof. So even Germany has a very extreme burden of proof despite their history to do that.
He started off by saying
Isn't
you guys
one of the
were
leaders of the
claiming-
party a lesbian?
He started off by claiming you guys were claiming it was a slippery slope fallacy, and then at the end of your exchange there, you're willing to take it to the pinnacle of self-determination and strip that away if you don't like what people are saying.
Yeah, no, if what
Do you
people are
understand the
saying is I'm going to
transition?
kill you,
Do you
yeah, I'm okay
understand
with
what you
stripping
just
away
reversed?
self-determination.
So a people come together, create their own laws, and you're saying nope, can't do that.
Yeah, if the laws
Right, you're
are we're
okay
going to
with
make it so no one else can participate in this democracy
what's your
anymore. Yeah, I'm okay
position?
with
Like,
that.
what are you even arguing for?
I would suggest
it's
you go
a
back
veiled
and listen
threat-
because this is super fucking obvious. Just because I'm not
Well,
okay with banning
veiled
hate
threats,
speech,
whatever can
when a
affect-
political
Hold
party,
on.
let's just listen,
Veiled
little
threat.
boy. I understand it's hard to listen, but just listen, just quiet coyote, okay? Look, if a party is running on a platform of dismantling democracy and killing people, like everyone, and making it so that no one can ever self-determine again, then that's when I take away their self-determination, because that's the paradox of tolerance. You don't let people say, hey, we're going to use your democracy to make it so that you'll never have democracy anymore.
Oh, that's great, little boy. It sounds like you're pretty liberal then, huh? Don't it?
Yeah, I'm
Well,
so
I don't
liberal,
know about
dude.
that
You know what?
Allow me to interrupt. I am shutting down the tomato side, so you will be raiding over to the gauntlet now. here in just a minute. So if you're watching out there in La La Land, I will continue dropping the link in the chat. But otherwise, ride the wave, hit the raid on over to the Gauntlet. Thank you.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
just
so much
notice
for
how
the
like Soy
tolerant
Pill is
left.
going to these arguments where it's like he's basically like trying to go to some extreme and like bring in like stuff that's already illegal and say, oh, but if we tie it to this, then can we ban? But like the topic is literally should the government censor hate speech, and he has ran from defending this position the entire
I
time.
never started there. You should listen to my intro again, Teriak.
It's just a hypothetical. Like you can seem to thrive on hypotheticals. Like, what if this happened? What if this happened? What if there was a government? What
It's not
if
a
there was
hypothetical.
a
This has happened in
political
Germany
party
at
that
least
was
2
running on
times.
merger?
They had to ban the
That's never gonna
NDSP
happen
party.
in
They
the-
had to ban the
you know
KDPD party because they ran on a platform of making it so other people don't have a democracy. Yeah,
The
it's a
current
paradox
status
of
quo was
tolerance.
to
You're not
get
gonna.
rid of
I'm not
Griswold.
gonna.
No. Now I want an
Colorado, they
explanation.
were trying to say he was
Farewell,
inciting violence,
Trippy.
should not be allowed to be a politician in this country. Are you insane?
Sorry, can you repeat it? I couldn't hear you.
It's at the point today where they're trying to use January 6th to kick him off the ballot. This happened.
Yeah,
before
I
the
think he should be kicked off the ballot for that.
Okay,
By the way, that's
okay.
very treasonous and against our Electoral Count Act. So yeah.
Oh yeah, so I mean, it's not even. He's
Hold,
not.
no,
what is
hold
he
on. No,
advocating for?
that's a good point.
Exactly.
What do you think would have happened if the lawyers because there was a court case about this in Colorado where they did try to kick him off the ballot and it went to court and went through the process. Roll with me here. What do you think would have happened in America if right before the election the judges had decided, hey, we're not going to let Donald Trump run, and they kicked him off the ballot?
Yeah, so
What-
if your
walk-
argument
walk
is
me
that the
through what
the
happens
Trump
next.
base is so trumped up and like insane that if they were to look and watch the legal process be followed through, they'd commit a civil war, and therefore we
Oh, did
shouldn't
he
follow
say-
the
did he
law.
say go
No, I
protest?
don't think that's a
He-
good reason to not say, hey, you tried to overturn an election illegally. You sent false electors to the fucking White House to try to trick people into stealing this. Yeah, I don't think that just because his base would be fucking insane about it means that we shouldn't do something about the fact that he broke the law. No, that's
But the
insane,
problem,
Wick.
what you're advocating for, what would do would lead to we're going to set the violence for aside from now.
Mhm.
What happens next is that they have you've given them a weapon. You've given the right a weapon. You've given Trump a weapon,
Mhm.
right? And to say, hey, look, the Democrats don't actually believe in democracy. They are anti-democracy.
Yeah, we're past
They
that
want to
point,
take
Wick,
away
because
your
they tried
vote.
to overturn the Democratic
take away your
election.
right to vote for
Wick, they
who
tried
you
to
like.
overturn the 2020 Democratic election. Well, I know you believe that it's
Oh,
not
the
big
paradox
lie,
of
right?
Oh, so
Joseph,
one sec. So we
please
should
said one
ban
more.
ban the
Look at
Republican
that.
Party.
Hold on.
Again,
I didn't say ban the
you-
Republican
you.
Party.
There are
I said
certain
if you
things-
want to get rid of the
Oh,
guy
okay.
who tried to
even if I
overturn and
agree
incite
they're
the election.
bad, that you should not do in
Pardon
response
me.
to certain things that I agree are bad.
Wick,
I
your
agree that it was
position right
bad
now
from
is I know you tried to steal the
I
election,
agree.
but you also have a massive base of people that might do other bad things. Therefore, we should let you get away with it.
Hold on.
Oops.
So we could look at probabilities here and probable outcomes, and we can say, hey, what is most likely to happen in the situation? Will it hurt our democracy? Will it help our democracy? Will it hurt the Constitution? Will it help the Constitution? Will
Yeah,
it hurt
will
the
it help
Constitution?
our democracy if we let
And
people
just
get away
because
with
I
trying to
agree that
steal
stealing
elections,
is
Wick?
bad, like I agree that stealing is wrong, but I wouldn't
Wow.
want someone's hand cut off for stealing. There are
I
certain
would.
I
actions
also don't think we
that
should cut
even
off Trump's
if
hand.
someone engages in them,
He didn't
really
steal
hard
an
to-
election,
okay
Soy. Like you'd have to actually
anything and everything to them, and
you'd have
in
to
that
actually show proof of
the
your
flexible
claim, but
hold
you're
on.
not going
it is
to.
not okay.
You don't even need to. You can ask him about the
Major
timeline when all the
Jesus
lawsuits came
fucking
down.
Christ. Can I just stop? Stop. Wick was clearly talking. I personally invited Wick this evening because I know that he really wanted to dive into this, and every fucking one of you is interrupting him while he's trying to get through his fucking point. Why? You know my rules. Just shut your mouth and wait. Wick, please continue.
Okay, I am a little chatty, Kathy. I get it.
Sorry,
I
Witcher.
understand,
It's
but we'll
it's
keep going.
okay. It's
Right?
okay. You earned the right to be chatty, Kathy. So
Thank you.
chat away, my friend.
But as I was saying, right, just because I agree with you that there was a law broken, that he did wrong, that does not mean I think any and all punishments are okay to levy upon this person. And I
Right.
think
You
the
think that
of
punishment
removing him from the
should
ballot
be
doesn't just punish Trump; it punishes anyone who wants to support Trump politically. And I think it would be in the death of the American democratic system.
Right. Okay. So if Trump went down to Fifth Avenue and shot a guy, should we punish him because his
Yes.
entire base
Yes.
would say, actually, no, he was justified in
You
doing
should
that?
lock him up, and he can run.
Why?
From prison.
If he was
Why?
supposed to, then
What if
no.
his whole base was going to commit violence because of it?
Can we get a hypothetical counter?
What if he was going to commit violence from it?
Yeah. What if the exact same result would happen as if we were to prosecute him for January 6th? Then why should we prosecute him for murdering a guy?
What if prosecuting? Well, I'll turn your hypothetical on its head. What if prosecuting him, even in throwing away the key, led to his people running up and killing everyone you ever loved?
I still think we should go for it, and I think we should try to stop him. Yeah,
Even if they
yes,
took
because I don't think we should let
and
him
stabbed
get away with crimes because he
fine.
has a base of violent people who would react negatively to any and all of those crimes being prosecuted.
Oh,
Yeah.
he has a base of violent people. What about the Summer of Love? What about all
that's
those
right.
fires?
Excuse me.
What about-
BLM.
I can do one better.
BLM's bad. What about?
So the
yeah,
person.
Okay, what's up?
None of those people that I mentioned, I'm sorry, Teriak, but none of those people that were involved in any of the things that I mentioned were Trump supporters, were they? But
What,
yet,
at BLM?
you know, the ones who are super violent, people who are either centrist.
No, liberals
or,
love committing violence. We love stealing. We love killing. You're right. Okay, we move on.
I'm not going
What's
to
your
say
question,
that either.
Teriak?
I'm going to say that those people were definitely blatantly espousing fucking liberal talking points and liberal flags and all sorts of
Right.
shit.
I agree.
You're gonna-
So you're right.
I
We
think
should
we should
never
just lock 'em
prosecute a
up.
Democrat ever. I agree.
Hateful
Okay.
rhetoric,
What's
lock
up,
'em
Teriak?
up.
What if
Josh?
neither?
Oh,
Go ahead. Sorry.
I thought you were concluding. Go ahead, Trippy. Finish your
Oh,
thought.
I was going to say, what if neither side are actually super violent in, you know, conjunction? Like everybody put together, they're not all just violent.
I agree with that. I don't think Trump has a base of super violent
So there's
people
good
that it would
people
be
on both
so
sides,
bad that if we prosecuted him for a crime that it
So
would
there's
it
good
means we
people on
shouldn't
both sides?
prosecute him. Huh?
There's good people on both sides then.
Trippy's mic is
there
very
are some
loud.
good people on both sides. I will say that,
I'll
and
have
I
to
don't
turn
mean
it
the
down.
neo-Nazis and white supremacists, which I condemn completely.
I don't know.
Can I
Uh,
answer this question, Sarah?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so hello, Sarah and crew. I'm a very tolerant person. Everyone should do what makes them feel complete. I'm still shocked when I run into T people. Thoughts? Well, let me give you some things that you could do. Number one, open your wallet, take all of the cash, and give it to the trans person.
Yes.
And that's the way that you make a great first impression. And I think most people will come away from that interaction saying that you're quite tolerant. So I
agree. Every trans person wants to rob you,
doing the right
Josh,
thing,
so be
Josh.
careful.
It's not robbing, it's consensual, and he's giving it to me. Thank you, Josh.
fair.
I want to be tolerant. I give money.
I appreciate tolerance of giving money. Daniel McCoy with the Big Five. Shout out to the Mug Club, to you, Soy. If you could show off that
The
fine
Mug
and
Club. I'm out of
sexy
water,
mug
by
you
the way.
got
It's
going
still
on.
not big enough, so I am gonna have to go get more.
You need this one. Look at this. This is huge. Big black thing with stars on it.
I'm tired of these Canadian Steven Crowder, Canadian Neve, Irish Teriak over here thinking that they can have an influence over my politics. Get out of here.
Yeah,
Get
of course they
out of
do.
here. This
Of
is
course they do.
stolen valor.
It's Hard Wrangler in with the Big Ten says I'm saying in college studied statistics, which are overwhelmingly feminist. Come on, definitions for SA and grape will be warped, so it will further widen the gap of perceived victimhood for women.
What's this have to do with free speech?
It
Nothing.
was it was one of Fatty's points. Evan, Lord, I just got a Cash App with the Big Five from Flow State to boot you.
Oh,
You got
give him,
5
let him
minutes to look
cook.
back.
You didn't get to answer
let
his
him
question.
cook. I know. Normally, I try to let him like chime in early on because I know he always only has one question and then he moves on. Jeremy with the Big Ten. I've seen hogs that are less sloppy eaters than Tied Up is. Get that full off screen. Thank you. The first Cash App came in and took care of that. And Daniel McCoy solidifying. Here's 10 more for the Tantrum
Wow.
Tide, Brood, and Childish. Almighty Nate gave 20 for a credit for Fatty. Thank you so kindly.
Is Fatty
And-
gone?
Yeah, he left. He'll be back for next Monday, and he had something he had to tend to, so he stuck around for a little bit. Vibe on with the Big Ten. Soy, speaking of conceding, you admitted that the government should not censor speech, only that it can evaluate on a case-by-case basis whether speech might lead to violence or has led to violence.
Right.
What say
So
you?
if at a certain point you think that speech stops becoming speech when it is something that is a true threat, then I guess, but I don't think definitionally that's what it is. And that's why there are forms of speech that are censored, which is what I said from the beginning.
Well, no, I mean,
Fair
you did
enough.
say from the beginning.
So is
I mean, you had an opening statement, and you basically said, "Hey, we've got a government system in place that can determine when violence might have been appropriated or not." correct?
Yeah.
And then you actually said it in your ending statement as well, where you said, hey, I said it in my opening statement. Now, the prompt of this topic is, should the government censor? And I guess my question would be, is there a difference between censoring and appropriating when those words were right? And the greatest example has been this YouTube debate where we're all talking about, when do we use the word grape? Do we have to use HH? Right? It's been a hard debate because of how censored we are.
That's a private institution.
And we know
thing, right?
that when we're
it's about
using
not getting...
HH, well, that's a private institution,
Yeah,
but
well,
at the same time, this can go right to government, right?
Just for clarification, it's hate speech, not threats of violence. So Teriak was
Why
trying
are
to
these
make
things
this
mutually
distinction
exclusive?
earlier.
Well,
Are you
and
saying,
actually, I mean,
they are?
They aren't
They're
mutually
not.
exclusive. They're
Then
not
what's your
one to
issue
one.
with
They're
that?
not
That is the
concentric
next point I
circles,
want to go to.
obviously.
With it then.
Okay, would you
But I
say
wanna
that
keep
if
it
I
point-
said
keep
if I
point
said
by point.
kill
Talk
every
about veiled threats or anything and trying to distinguish between what's an actual threat and what's just,
in what world do you think hate speech can't encompass a veiled threat? Like, why are
Because
these things mutually exclusive?
they're clearly to the layman.
The first
There's
one.
clearly a distinction. One would be,
What's the distinction?
the distinction would be like using slurs, really degrading stuff, twisting the knife, that type of deal. That's different than threatening to impose harm on someone.
So you can't threaten to impose harm
Unless you're
on
trying to
someone
claim
with
they are.
slurs?
Wait, say that again?
Do you think you can't threaten to impose harm on someone using slurs or derogatory language?
I can. You
Well,
want?
let's back up. Let's
No.
back up for
What
a
are you
second
talking
here,
about?
right? It's really easy. We're just one second.
And before you go
don't
ahead,
dictate your
5, I will hand it back to you. Joseph, Flow State just sent another 5 on Cash App to boot you. And I think it was for his own good. Very self-serving.
But also for his pain.
Trippy got
Again?
booted earlier, but revived. And then Draco sends in a big 5. Soy, you're a toucan. Stop being a parrot for MSNBC.
I don't watch MSNBC.
Can you
but nice
squawk?
try.
Do you squawk?
I could.
That was pretty good, actually. But
I'm a Carl Winslow in my own right. Okay.
Oh.
Because we hear a bird hit his window.
We might need that a little later. And Kissy Cat sending out another 20 Gauntlet memberships. Shout out to you, Tomatoes and Swords in the chat. For
Where do I
Kissy
get
Cat,
these like
love you
super
so
generous
much.
gift? Where do I get my Kissy Cat,
You
Sarah?
have to be nice to people.
Oh well, never mind then. I don't want it.
And you have to bring the entertainment to your show.
I do.
Right?
I'd say
what
so.
I do. I bring
No,
everybody.
I don't want to disparage. My chatters are very generous. I'll say that. I'm only kidding a little bit.
Did
They're
you
very
hear
nice.
that? To everyone watching Soy Pill right now, did you hear what he just said? He's calling y'all some cheap mofo. You better own up.
I
Save some
just
money
had I had
and-
a chatter that said, I want to give you so much money that you need to invent a new Patreon tier. That's how much money they wanted to get.
Oh,
Well, you know what? To all of your super chatters, I'm much nicer, and I won't call you a bunch of cheap little bitches either.
I also didn't say that. To be clear, Sarah.
Yes,
I just
you
want
did.
Kissy Cat to
I
give
heard
me
it.
money as well.
Insinuated.
He implied. Okay, I'm gonna hand it back to you guys.
So Soy, I've got 3 phases here. So the first phase is, if I say I hate Brazilians, and I think everybody that's listening to me right now also needs to hate Brazilians.
Okay.
Is that hate speech?
I think that would qualify. Yeah, sure.
But I'm not saying. Okay. So let me just add something onto that. I hate Brazilians. I think everybody on this panel should hate Brazilians. I'm going to give you all the reasons you should hate Brazilians.
Okay.
But I don't want you to do any harm.
I think it's still hate
Is
speech,
that
but
hate
that
speech?
should be allowed. Yeah.
That should be allowed. Right?
Yep.
Okay. So if I then say the same thing, but I say, hey, I think we need to rise up against them and do something. I don't necessarily say hurt them. That would probably be.
It's on the line
violence,
for sure,
right?
and I think if you look at the intention and what they might be trying to do, I think a judge could rule on that. But I think the way you've described it,
And this
that
is
also
where the government
probably
comes in,
wouldn't
right?
cross the line. By the way, well, real quick, Sarah, Kissy Cat just gave me 10 memberships, so complaining works, but I'm not going to do that. That seems like a scummy strategy. So this is the last time, but thank you so much, Kissy Cat. That was very
this
nice
one's
of you.
a shout out to Kissy Cat. K2 Keep on Truckin' wants to celebrate Kissy Cat's membership drive by the hot yoga video.
But yeah, thank you, Kissy Cat. But now knowing that that works, I shall not complain again because that feels
This
bad.
message
I
is
really
sponsored
appreciate it.
in part by
Music as well, you know what I mean?
It's fucking Pride Month. Can we get the fireman on stream?
I'm sorry. No, it's not. Because
Well, this one
you
is
know.
for William, who wanted to boot Nova, Who the fuck doesn't like titties on a screen, William? You booted the only big tits.
It's Pride Month. We're all gay now, Sarah. Sorry.
We have here. No.
Tomato, fierce and red, juicy curves,
This message is sponsored in part by
Happy
Wow.
Pride Month.
All right.
Every single man on this
anyways,
panel is now gay, having seen that. I hope you understand that. That's
All
how
it
it
takes is
works.
one fireman video and you're gay.
It's contagious. It's contagious.
It's like a virus.
And by the way,
So
there is no.
stage three, sorry, on hate speech, right?
Okay.
So we're saying, if it's considered hate speech, violence has to be acted on, right?
No,
Now,
it doesn't have, it doesn't have to be
question-
acted on. It can just be an incitement.
or it has to be incited, right?
Yep.
And then in the violence, let's break that into two categories. Is it only physical violence or is it psychological violence?
No,
as well?
the like the Supreme Court ruled with the burning the cross thing, they might not actually be calling for the lynching of a certain family that they're trying to scare out of a city. However, that intimidation tactic, which again, intimidation is illegal in other capacities as well, right? Like you can't like run around like on like, you know, threatening to punch someone, even though you haven't done anything to them. It's that is, I guess that's threatening and, you know, some sort of physical violence, but that psychological factor is ruled into that burning cross decision. And yeah, that should be illegal.
So I mean, this is really where we're kind of going, right? Is like where is the line? And this is a slippery slope where you guys were debating, going, where do we stand on this whole thing, right?
Mhm.
In the sense that if we're now going, okay, if I psychologically hurt you
Mhm.
because the threat of potential violence, right?
Mhm.
Then how does the court like determine that?
Well, if you disagree with the Virginia versus Black thing, I understand. I think Wick also did. And he's saying, look, I think that even though in the cases of these burning crosses, like I can see where they're coming from, it's too broad. And I think that this can be applied in ways I don't like. And I agree. I think there are ways that this could be applied to be like, well, hold on. Like, for example, I think that, you know, it's super politicized now. If people start saying like, oh, trans people aren't real, you're just mentally ill, right? And someone tries to rule that this is like, oh, you're trying to threaten them out of town. I think that might be, you know, way too ambiguous. I don't think people should go to jail for that, especially given the context of the political discussion right now. However, I think the burning cross one is this sort of line where it's like, okay, this is very fucking obvious. There's context for it. There's enough cases where this has happened where you can say, look, if you're doing this, there's no way you're in good faith doing it in the way that we'll prosecute you for it. Like, and Fatty brought up the example of, oh, well, what about Kanye, like burning them in his music video? It's like, yeah, actually, that is allowed because they have carve outs for certain things that are art, for expression, that aren't just, you know, clearly what they would call and determine in a court to be a call to violence. So
do you think
And so what I keep on hearing from you is you don't think it should be censored.
No, I
you
do.
think
Yeah.
it should just be totally taken on a one-by-one basis. That's what you keep on saying. You've been saying since your
Yes,
opening
I've been saying it
statement,
since
your
my
closing
opening,
statement.
that you
Yes,
can't
so you
apply
don't
this
believe
in a
it should be
way that
censored. So you
you
are
need-
conceding
yes.
to this particular prompt.
If saying that a judge, you know, you can't just have a law that says if you do this thing, and I can think of an exception where I wouldn't be okay with it, is conceding. I think that's ridiculous. I think most,
No,
if not
it's
all,
conceding.
listen, hold on, please listen.
when
We
you
can
say
all
that
be.
you wouldn't
Let me
allow
finish.
it,
Let me,
or do we
Sarah,
let the
make
courts
them let me
deal
finish.
with it?
I'm talking.
You know what?
The judicial system exists insofar as judges need to do this all the time for so many laws, right? Murder is illegal. Killing is not illegal because sometimes we can say, wait a minute, that wasn't murder. We need to have that discretion. And I think there's no like
We do.
significant difference between
We do. Yeah. Star?
Yes.
I think I'm just drawing a distinction between judicial and censorship.
Right. So what do you
And
think
I
censorship is
from
then,
the
Bob?
judicial side, and I am against the censorship, right? So I
Right.
agree with you. I actually like the things you're saying, but I
So
don't think we should
what's
take
censorship then, Vibe? Can you define like what you would call censorship and why you're not
we all
okay with the
just
government doing it?
acknowledge that judicial.
We're now not allowed to say all these things that hurt people's feelings, that make them feel like they might be attacked. Like, I mean, I can say to my next door neighbor, I don't like the way they grow their grass. And they might take that as a threat if they're a certain type of person.
Right,
Other
and,
people will
and
be
I
like, "Oh, he
agree.
doesn't like it, right?"
We shouldn't ban all
How
of
does
these
that work?
things just because someone's offended. I think the reason I keep bringing up this cross thing is that this is so explicit, and the court had to look at like it had to go all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they were able to see, hey, given the context of this isn't just my fifis are hurt, right? Like someone said, like sneered at a black person, and they're like, oh, I don't feel welcome in this neighborhood, therefore you shouldn't be able to sneer at a black person. This was like a very contextualized, very, very like historical precedent. Oh, when people do this, when they burn this cross, this is a call to violence, or at least an intimidation tactic to get them out of a place, which is a different way of violence. Which is like,
I absolutely love that this is the cross you want to die on, because your cross argument, which is your go-to, is not.
This message is sponsored in part by.
All right, Flow State sent a big 10 in on Cash App. Says, "Bring me back for Evan. Time out, Sarcastic Saint. Sarcastic Saint, I timed you out in the chat for 5 minutes, but you should be coming back here shortly." And then, of course, King TL sent 10 gifted Gauntlet memberships. Thank you, King TL.
Not all he said.
And then, of course, Sarcastic Saint tried to get Flo out to bring back Tits McGee. We loved it. We were all excited. And then he also says, Teriak, can you please do your part?
They were after me Lucky Charms, but they couldn't get them because I went on a rainbow and they couldn't find me.
Yeah. Dance.
Thank you, sir. And Evan Lord was sponsoring to have the watermelons back on screen. And he also says Pride Month is canceled. It is Jurassic June and the beginning of White Boy Summer. What the hell?
I can
is
get behind
Jurassic
that.
June?
I don't know. What is it?
We're having
Chet
dinosaur
Hanks-
parades now. Fucking
Chet
no more
Hanks
gay pride.
declared. Chet Hanks declared White Boy Summer 2 years ago, buddy. You're late.
Oh, what is
Yeah, I
White
used to
Boy
do a
Summer?
show. But Jurassic June is a new one for me.
That's
Oh,
Jurassic Month is a new one for sure.
What?
We
Yeah,
can
what
celebrate
is it? Does
both.
anybody
What
know
is
what it
it?
is?
You have to
Boy
have
Summer.
T-Rex farms the whole summer.
Oh,
Or the whole
goodness.
month.
I don't wanna be
Even Almighty Nate is in on keeping Watermelon Crushers on screen. And of course, your horse video is sponsored by Kissy Cat on to send her love over to K2 Keep on Trucking. I love this little thing they got going. I mean, are they a thing? And then King TL, of course, comes in with a big 20. FYI, Sarah and Nova, you owe me a date still from our E-date that is documented. You would E-date me again. I'm just... and I didn't timestamp or put on a hard drive that both you women said yes. I don't know. I
Ladies.
doubt it. Show the receipts, King.
What
I
he's
doubt
proving is
I
that
would
women
agree to
do
this.
lie. All right, women do lie. We shouldn't believe all women.
I don't.
And then show the receipts.
King TL, where do you live? I don't remember.
I
Remember,
thought he
he's
was
the
in
one-
Look at them
Colorado.
gaslighting you. I'm not
It's
sure I
like
said
it's
that.
like
I'm
North
not sure.
Dakota or something.
No, I thought he was Colorado. I know he's in the mountain range or something like that, or maybe Utah. I don't know. One of the weird ones.
North Dakota.
And nah, I think I'm pretty sure it was Colorado. Anyways.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I know he's constantly covered in baby oil, which I mean, given more recent
No,
situations,
now
I don't know if he
listen,
still
You're
is.
thinking of
was-
Diddy.
He was
No,
covered
Sarah.
in no. I remember the baby oil conversation. He held up
Yeah.
some cheap ass like
Yep.
Temu baby oil, and we were all like, "What the fuck is that?" Johnson & Johnson, baby, you know it. Anyways, I leave the panel back to you guys.
Well, he was getting ready for his spot in Fast and the Furious 10 or 11
Okay, I don't
or
care about
12
sure,
or
right.
whichever one.
Can we at least acknowledge just real quick that censorship is dangerous?
Yes, very much so.
Yep.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Soy, can you at least acknowledge that?
Like it can be? Yeah.
It's like trying to
obviously,
legislate morality. You can't.
Well,
do it.
We legislate morality all the time.
What we
We're,
should
well,
do
we're
is
trying to. We're trying to. But
I don't
the
think
point
it's
is that
that-
you can't.
Killing is immoral only insofar as we've defined it because we as a society think it is. That's legislating morality. That's what all laws are derived from a societal morality.
What happens
should
when,
do-
No,
a-
that's not
okay, when a
That's
group
not
feels
accurate.
excluded? Okay, when a group feels excluded that they can't participate in the discourse, when they can't do what is called venting. We call it venting for a reason, right? I'm venting about this person. I'm venting about this group. I'm venting about the gays, the Jews, the blacks, the Muslims, the whoever, right? The whites, the wickers. Okay. When you plug that vent
He
up,
didn't say what you thought he said.
they're-
I saw your face.
okay, it's okay. Don't worry. Look, I can say it. It's my people. Okay. When you plug that vent,
I don't have any evidence to discount that claim,
When
but
you-
I am disappointed by that.
You can't just come up yapping.
Right.
when you plug that vent up, it leads to an explosion. Because if you silence people, right, if you keep them from talking, they're still going to want to be heard, and they're going to choose non-verbal ways to be heard. I have a study. Yeah, I know you love it. It's a longitudinal study from 1990 to 2015, okay, where they looked at 18 Western European countries. So we're not even looking at America here. And they looked at, what's the connection between right-wing violence, right-wing terroristic violence, and censorship and things like that. And interesting find, and I'll just read you the abstract here. The end of the abstract says the article concludes by highlighting the paradox that countermeasures intended to constrain radical right politics appear to fuel extreme right-wing violence. Because of course it does. When people can no longer be heard through their words, through their speech, they will turn to other methods to be heard. And censorship is incredibly, incredibly harmful and dangerous to not only the discourse, but to the society as a whole.
So, Wick, I understand this, Wick, but what I gotta say is that while I might agree with you that certain amounts of censorship are bad, and clearly, I mean, yeah, if you censor people in certain ways that are fueling more violence, I do disagree with certain ways of censorship as well. I'm not like some ultimately, censorship absolutist, but you gotta look at like, certain examples of like when and when not this is okay. And I'm like, I don't know, I look at Twitter,
like the time that you censored me, Wick, that was probably fucking completely inappropriate.
You make it so loud.
I'm telling you.
When did I censor you?
Holy shit.
I've been telling him
All the
for a
time.
month now to move the mic a foot away from his face.
I think with Wick, I think the thing with Wick, at least I'll acknowledge that Wick is making an argument. Teriak didn't make an argument, and I would like to consider what you're saying in more detail.
First of all,
Wick, in my own time.
Yeah,
but
first of all,
Teriak, it's
Neve,
interesting
you're
when
the
you
one who-
prepare
you're the
for
one who said-
debates. When you
Hold
prepare
on,
for debates,
Teriak.
it's interesting how you can like formulate
Yeah.
arguments and like bring something to the table.
Neve, you just said that I didn't make an argument when you were the one who was saying that the concentration camps weren't as bad as what Donald Trump is doing.
Well,
so,
Wick arguing
end
the
of.
opposing side
End of.
posited
End
something
of.
into the discussion that made me pause.
You justified
and think.
concentration camps.
I
Like,
am willing.
That's an
because
automatic L.
my ego isn't really attached to my argument here. Okay, so I'm willing.
Yeah, but you're saying I can't make an argument, and you made an argument
because you
for
literally
camps.
can't. Because you literally can't. I think you have the quickest concession on a debate possibly ever with your
Bill
debate
conceded
with
in his
millennial
opening statement. The fuck you
your
talking
debate
about?
with millennial.
I had to do
15 more minutes, guys.
sign up
Then I'll
for
talk to
tier
you and log off. This is getting
Cause you're a Patreon girl and your love for me depends on how much money that I pledge to you monthly.
You showed up with one argument, Teriak, last
Don't
time.
make me separate the two of you. Stop it.
Can we just
get
full
Nova
screen
to
Nova
stand
for a
back
while?
up for a while.
I want to ask Rick a question.
Go ahead,
You-
Nova. Ask her.
Hi.
Can you do it
Rick,
standing
you
up?
made the point that when free speech is being censored, you have groups that come up, right? And then they start demonstrating violence, like what? Black Lives Matters, Antifa, right? Right?
If you were under the impression that I'm here to defend Black
Put
Lives
your hands
Matter,
down.
No,
or
no.
you're
But I'm
totally
I'm
mistaken.
using that as an example. Secondarily, that what those groups are actually doing falls under Homeland Security terrorist threats and acts of violence. You do understand that, right? Does anybody on the panel understand
Do you
that?
think that their words and phrasing should be censored by the government? That Antifa saying Black Lives Matter or I want to punch a fascist in the face. Do you think the government should be able to arrest them for their speech?
Not for that, no. But when they're talking
not for
about,
that. We agree
no,
on that.
yes, we
So,
agree on that.
Obviously, if they engage in violence, they should be punished for that violence. But my argument tonight, and I think that you might agree, you might not, I don't even know who you are, but
sure,
it's nice to meet you.
Hi.
That they can say whatever they like, and the government shouldn't be able to touch them. But what's happening is, and under the Trump administration, we see one of the greatest attacks on free speech we've ever seen. You can write an op-ed that is critical of Israel, and they will snatch you from the street.
That's
Throw
false.
you in a prison for weeks.
False.
That just happened.
All of that is false.
Yeah,
All
Wick,
of
let
that is
me
false.
save you, Wick. Let me save you, Wick. Are you saying, Wick, is your argument based? It's like, let them say all this like shit, like so they show you who you are, and then you can tie
You're
it back
not
so the public
saving
knows
me,
exactly.
first of all.
Here-
And second of
here-
all,
Yeah, you are.
Here's what's
this isn't
happening. Wick.
happening when we
You're
have
completely
evidence that it's
mischaracterizing the
happening
situation.
is kind
Okay,
of nonsense.
You're completely mischaracterizing the situation. The ICE is not driving down the street.
Hold on, what did
Black fans
Osberg say?
ICE is not driving.
Given her
ICE is not driving down the street and picking up people
have a
and
video
throwing
of
them
them
in
in
gulags.
plainclothes,
Okay,
uh,
what's actually happening
video
is
of
that
them in
people with
plainclothes,
journalistic
ICE is in
visas
plainclothes,
or academic
descending
visas
upon
are being
Osberg,
revoked.
arresting
Their visas
her,
are being
putting her in a
revoked.
van, taking
Their
her to
visas are being
detention.
revoked.
It's on evidence.
Wick.
Someone asked earlier, like, is there a point to this? I'm gonna do way less of these after panels. I think I'm gonna limit it to like an hour. Because there's no point to this, other than getting Wick to expose that he's a free speech absolutist, which is fucking stupid.
Some of those
After you're done
some of those is speaking out against
Thank
the country.
you,
Some of those is participating in terrorist activities. Some of those is participating in protest activities which actually prevent Americans from doing what they normally do, which is go to college, going to class, getting into the library, this type of stuff, especially on campuses like Harvard. So some of the most prestigious campuses in the fucking world, where people pay hundreds of thousands of dollars every single semester to go to school. You're blocking these people from going to campus, going to class, going to the library. You're stopping people from investing in American education.
I'm not answering my question.
And you're on a student visa. You're gonna get that revoked. Yeah, you're out.
Okay, so again, I'll ask your question now that you're done rambling. I'll ask it again. Do you think people's visas, who are here on student visas, who are here in the country legally, their student visas should be revoked based on their speech? Do you think that's true? Do you think that should happen?
A visa is an invitation. If
So
you
you don't
if you
believe in free
sequester
speech.
the
That's
points
fair.
of the
But I'm
invitation,
here to defend
then you
free
deserve
speech.
to be
Someone who
revoked.
believes in the Constitution of the United States of America, someone who has fought for our country, right? Someone
Okay,
who hasn't broken
I'm
their
sorry.
oath
Someone
to
who
defend
someone who has
Someone who
fought for this
actually
country. I
believes
fought for this country too,
everyone
Wick.
should be able to
I fought
speak.
for this country
I
too,
want
Wick.
to peace
And
with
I'm
the people of
ashamed.
my
I'm
country,
ashamed to be part of the same branch of the service as you.
You
I
should
really am.
because you're an oath breaker. To be clear.
I'm not an oath breaker.
You are
I've never broken my
absolutely
oath.
an oath breaker.
I've never
You
broken my
failed
oath in
to
this
defend the
country.
Constitution, which
Never
includes the
once.
First Amendment.
Never
Can you
once,
read the
brother.
First Amendment
Never
to me, sir?
fucking once. Yes,
You
sir.
read the First Amendment to me, sir.
Absolutely.
What does it say?
Absolutely. It says you have freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of expression.
Yes, everyone does. So when you
Under the law.
advocate for people to rescind other people,
Not everyone,
First
sir.
Amendment
Not
rights
everyone.
based on their-
American citizens.
again,
American
their group
citizens.
status,
American
I think that
citizens.
you are
My
defeating
camera's
your
blurry.
oath.
I'm
I
sorry.
love that two people I'm disagreeing with. Are
I'm not
fighting right
breaking
now.
my oath by
them
saying that
fight.
the American Constitution only applies to American citizens. I'm not breaking my oath.
We have evidence that that's not true. SCOTUS has ruled on this again and again and again that First Amendment does apply to even immigrants.
Humbug. Okay, so it can apply to immigrants. It can apply to immigrants. It does not apply to visa holders. Visa holders are not immigrants. Visa holders are people. Visa holders are guests of the nation at the behest of the State Department. That's what they are. And if the head of the State Department determines that you are no longer worthy of that guestmanship, then be gone.
Yes, and I am saying my argument here is that when the government is determining what that they're no longer worthy of their visa because of their speech, that is a gross violation of their free speech rights.
But what we're talking about is people who hold visas. We're not talking about American citizens. Is that correct? Can we agree on that? We can agree on that.
People in
You
Russia
said you don't care, but we can agree on that. Yes.
Do you think that
We can agree that we're talking about visa holders, not American citizens.
I didn't hear you. Repeat it, please.
Calm down, gentlemen. Calm down.
Elva, you always call me, and it's okay. I don't know you, but
Thank
I'm
you.
like,
I love you,
I don't think
Gingers.
Non-Fon's in the
You're
chat,
my kind of
but
guy.
Non-Fon
I'm not a ginger.
destroyed
I
this
proved
woman.
that to Sarah earlier today,
my
didn't I,
God.
Sarah?
Oh, I'm so
Or
sorry.
yesterday.
I just got up here. I'm so sorry. I just tuned in.
EOD.
All right.
Can I-
Who's next to speak? Ed, would you like to speak? Wick, would you like to speak?
I would like to speak. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate you. So, EOD, do you think the people of Russia should have free speech?
I don't think that it's our responsibility to enforce free speech in Russia.
I'm not asking if we should enforce it. I'm asking, do you think that they should have it as a concept?
I mean, I think it would be just if Russia would allow their people to have free speech.
Sure.
Yes.
You would like for the people of Russia to have the ability to free speech, but they're not Americans.
That's correct, which means it's not my responsibility to enforce that.
Okay, I understand. But if a Russian citizen is in America,
fucking
should we allow them the chance to have free speech? Because we can't enforce it in America, right?
Oh, okay. Wait a minute now. You said we can't enforce it in America. We can enforce it in America, and we do enforce it in America quite frequently.
Okay, should that Russian citizen be
I do like
allowed
this is just the Wick show now.
to free speech in America?
If I
In
was
America.
very rich, I would peddily
to a certain
boot
extent,
Wick
if they're on
every
a student
time he
visa,
interrupted
if they're on a
me,
visa, if
just
they're on
for
an
the meme,
invitation,
but I won't.
it's questionable. If they're a citizen, if that person is a Russian-born person who has immigrated into America and assimilated into American culture and become a citizen of the United States, absolutely, they should have free speech.
I
No,
don't
this is
think that
the when she does the
government should-
one-on-one. I'm
whether
not in the
Biden,
timeout right now.
Trump, Obama,
But I'm gonna do this for
Bush,
like 9 more
Clinton,
minutes,
doesn't
guys.
matter. We should not
We
be
can
in
chat a
the
little bit.
business
No, I gotta
of
go.
inviting people to our country and saying, you better fucking watch what you
Maybe
say
I'll 1v1
while
them,
you're
I don't
here.
know.
I think that is antithetical to
It's
the
just it's
concept
one
of
of those
free
things where it's like
I think
I'm
what's
not gonna change his
antithetical.
mind,
American
but he's
citizens,
my
we
friend, so
should
I would
not
try to.
invite them to our
Maybe.
country and say, okay, you can stay here as long as you don't fucking criticize the government, you fucking Russian.
I think what's antithetical to America is inviting people on visas, which are invitations, which are guest leisures into the country, and saying that you can just say all the anti-American things you want to say.
Hold on.
even though you're on.
Wait a minute. This guy has a hashtag make McCarthyism great again. I have to ask him if he wants to censor American citizens who promote communism. Not visa holders. Holy shit. How did I just see this? We gotta ask this guy.
It's a guest kind of fucking situation. You're not under the same rights as every single individual citizen of the United States. The
I agree
Constitution,
with-
I don't think extends beyond the citizenry of the United States. I think that's a nomenclature, and I think it's a huge misstep by the leftists to try and encompass the entire world inside of our own Constitution.
Hold
I
on,
think
you're
our
correct.
Constitution cannot and could not and will never not extend beyond the citizenry of the United States.
Visa holders be protected by the 8th Amendment. Cruel and unusual punishment.
That's not cruel and unusual punishment, though, honey.
No, I'm asking conceptually. Should we, the visa holder, have protection under the 8th Amendment?
Wait, don't kick him yet. I have a question for him. Wait, Sarah, before you make EOD go. EOD, your hashtag is make McCarthyism great again. Do you think the government
sir.
should be able to censor communist, sympathizers who are American citizens?
We used to.
I don't care who used to. I'm asking if he thinks we should.
We
Why
used
would
to.
you? Why would you?
I'm
though?
asking if you are. I'm sorry. Are you guys EOD? I asked EOD.
Give me my 5 minutes,
Oh,
Sarah.
we
I'll come back.
talked, so I figured I'd jump
Okay.
in for a second.
Well,
Nova,
I
have you
believe-
learned?
I
Nova, have you
believe
learned
You
from-
count as the redhead too. He said, "Send all the gingers to the back."
We do now. Yes,
I'm
I'm actually
pretty
brunette, but yes. All right, I'm gone. I guess.
All right, to the
I
redhead.
think the red
in
hat
back.
on Teriyaki is also
Holy.
kind of gingery. You know, like I don't know.
And then
How am I ginger?
Go
I
ahead.
want to. Sorry, I want to. Daniel sent clarification and. Mute yourself. Stop being stupid. Daniel sent the big 5 to said the mug club shout out was for Teriak. I don't care about Soy's fake beer mug. Soy Crowder is an American citizen born in Michigan. Dummy.
Pretty sure he's Canadian, but I could
Really?
be wrong.
His
You probably
mom-
watch
he-
more Steven Crowder
I
than
don't.
me.
I
His
think
mom's
he was
from Quebec. He was born in
Canada.
Grosse Pointe, Michigan,
No?
but he's
Oh.
both.
Okay, so
And
he's
he
a citizen.
speaks-
No, I
he
retract.
speaks-
He's not Canadian.
He speaks
Okay.
French. He's Canadian as fuck.
He's from the same state as me. Another reason to dislike that guy.
Aha! And Evan Lord with the Big 10 says, I'm one happy man because today I paid off all my student loans. Tomatoes in the chat for our darling Evan Lord. Shout out to you. I was going to argue that increasing central government power is the
right, I'm not
idea
eating.
and censorship is necessary and is good. Anyone have some thoughts to add to that?
Evan Lord is trolling. He should have said that on the panel with his chest, but now he's in the chat lobbing shit. with super chats.
I think the problem with
Get
right
your
wingers
ba-
is
get
they're
your
so
ass
bad
back on
at
here,
like
Evan Lord.
making fake left wing things. It's so easy to sniff them out. You got to be
It's
a
just
little more
like
sneaky
censorship
than
is a
that.
vast term. We need more details on what they mean. 'Cause
No,
hate
they're
speech,
just
I
being
don't
like,
fuck-
"Oh, I love being evil." Don't we love being gay and worshiping Satan, fellow lefties?
No, I mean, if you don't like about
damn.
doing it, that's fine. Some people don't do that.
If that guy that was
trust
selling
individuals
those,
to have free speech, how can you trust individuals to restrict speech?
So,
Do you think I don't trust people to have free
Let's step
speech? What
this
do you
up
mean?
from the
Yeah,
bottom.
you got a good one for
to
you.
the
Go ahead.
top.
Let that happen.
Something super simple here, right? Let's say I own a burger stand,
Okay.
And one of my employees, every day he shows up. Me and my wife work the
Why are
burger
you
stand.
complicating a
He-
perfectly
he-
simple
Let him finish.
question I just threw out there?
Let him finish the hypothetical. Let him finish it.
Oh, I missed that. Sorry, Powder. Go ahead.
No,
just
no,
wanna
no, don't let
say
Powder
I'm
go ahead. He
going
interrupted
to-
you.
Hold on. I just want
I
to
interrupted
say
you. I apologize.
I have to go check on a child really quick, but I'm going to leave Wick in charge. Wick,
Uh-oh.
it is
You said a
now
child
your
like it was a new alien.
your panel for the
Uh-oh.
next 3 minutes. And if I come back and Wick says any of you were misbehaving, I'm going to put you to the back. So be
Let's
good.
do it,
Why,
Dusty.
why are you
I'll just
apologizing to the
get-
person that interrupted you? That's crazy.
Oh, I thought you said he asked the question. I missed it.
It caught me off guard
I
too.
thought I missed the question he asked, but
Why
Yeah,
would
so
you
what's your
punch you in the
hypothetical? Wait,
face
hold
and
on.
you
I want to hear Vibe.
apologize.
Vibe, what's going on at this burger stand?
Apologies accepted, Neve. The question
Now,
was,
wait,
if you
panel.
can't trust
That
individuals to have free speech, why do you trust individuals to restrict speech?
I think this is a weird like dichotomy you've placed me in, where it's like, oh, like I can know that there's something bad that someone could say, but if I'm acknowledging that someone can say something so bad that it might cause violence or harm to someone, I therefore can't trust that a judge who has gone through like 20 years of schooling to try to like determine whether or not these things
Does
like should be
schooling-
pushed in one way or the other also
school
shouldn't be
create
trusted. No, I'm sorry. I can trust the judicial system, and I don't
You
trust.
can trust the judicial system.
Yeah.
well, okay.
Have
So
you ever
actually, I
been
do want to. I
involved
want to
in the
step back to
judicial-
my original
Yes.
question
How
because
can
I
you
think
trust
Dusty, what you're talking about is the
$1
next
million that have made in
is
the
the next
past?
question, right?
Okay,
so I
go
mean, going back
ahead.
to
Burgers.
going back to my
So you own a
original
burger
question,
stand.
right? I own this burger stand, right? And my wife and I work there, and we've got 3 employees. And one of the employees shows up every day, and he says, "Damn, your wife is hot. I would fuck her."
Okay.
You know what?
Oh,
Probably on day 3, I'm going to fire him.
Okay.
Now, did I infringe on his free speech? Because he
No,
can
that's
still
sexual
say that
harassment.
after I
That's
fire him.
sexual harassment.
Yeah.
What do
I
you-
mean,
Right,
if you're a
right,
free speech
okay.
absolutist,
So-
yes, but not
So now
legally.
let's
Like
step
that.
it up to the
Hold
next.
on.
Let's
Hold
step
on.
it up to the next level. Go ahead.
And
Rick.
you're a
But
cut.
Vibe, you know you
Like,
did,
this nigga
though,
getting
right?
fucked.
You know you
The
did
person
actually.
has to take the consequences for it. That's it. Yes, he's okay to say it, but if he gets fired for it, he has to take the consequences. All right, now
And
so-
he still, and so he got punished for his free speech, right?
Yeah.
Did he not
Yeah,
get punished for his free speech?
Yeah.
But he still has his free speech. Did he lose his free speech? He
No.
can still say it, even though he's fired,
Yeah.
right?
I agree. Yeah.
Okay,
But the-
right. So I mean, this goes back to what Wick was talking about earlier, right? I mean, we can keep on escalating this up through government levels, and we can go to Trump, and we can say, "Oh, well, Trump fired a bunch of lawyers because they disagreed with him.
Okay.
They said
Didn't
something he
just
didn't
fire
like."
them, let's be clear.
Wait,
He
hold on.
banned
Wait,
them
hold on.
from federal buildings and stripped them of their
Did
clearance.
he? Did he gag them?
Fuck me in the
Could they
pussy,
not
guys.
still speak? Were they
Bro,
still
there's
allowed?
certain
They
rules
could
and
not
laws.
practice
Hold on,
their
fuck me in the
laws
pussy, guys. Hold on
because
one
he
second.
banned them from federal
Look,
buildings.
There's certain laws and regulations that are in the code of conduct within a job. If you don't want to follow those, then you shouldn't sign for it.
Vibe, are you saying that the
wait.
consequence outweighs the need to take it, exceed it to like the Supreme Court? Is that what you're saying? Like,
Well, actually, I'm actually questioning everybody on this, right? Where is that line? So everybody agreed with me on the hamburger stand, right? That
No,
person that I fired.
no, I
still
was proud of
has
you for
the
your
freedom-
small
freedom of
business.
association,
It sounded
right,
cucky,
and freedom of
but
association
past
is
that,
part
I
of-
don't know.
That doesn't interfere with their free speech because you also have freedom of
Are y'all
association,
fucking
and free
kidding me?
speech only applies to government intervention.
Are you
in law.
fucking me kidding me?
Okay,
Is
wait,
this
wait,
that
wait.
serious? Are you fucking me in the ass right now? If the dude
Yes,
says
we're
that about
fucking
his
you in
wife,
the ass right now, fatty cousin.
Well,
right
I
now.
mean, I can
Hey,
try. Let me
Hey,
come on
Vibe.
over there. I'm gonna.
Look up. if
Vibe.
someone
I'm
says
gonna
something
try
about
it.
his wife, he has the right to fire him. Like,
So,
Again,
so
that's freedom. Yes, you're correct. That's called
He's
freedom of
sitting down.
association, and he has the freedom to associate with who he wants and not associate with who he wants. But when we get to the government cannot, for your speech, violate
Rosh,
your
now
rights
I'm
or
reading it in the
fire
Ben
you, for
Shapiro.
example. So, for
Say
example,
hypothetically,
So hold-
your
hold
wife
on.
is left with
They
a
can't
burger.
punish you. They can't
You
punish
fire
you
him.
for free speech,
Wait,
even though
you
you
just
still
said
have
totally different- hey,
free
people do that.
speech
You're comboing
afterwards.
violating rights and firing you. Which one are you choosing? They can't do what? They
Okay,
can't. They
so
can't fire you.
I'll give you an example. So if you have a
It's just-
government
it's- I mean,
contract,
it's a simple question, but go ahead.
if the government has hired you to do a
Right
job,
in the pussy looking ass.
okay, they gave you a contract, a money contract where you're getting so much money, right? You're getting this grant of money. And what they cannot do is they cannot say, well, when we give you this money, you can't criticize the American government. Because if you criticize the American government, we'll rescind this money. That's called viewpoint discrimination, and it's illegal.
Now, what if you are actually correct about what they're doing is incorrect?
It's
You're
not
the
illegal.
whistleblower.
You guys are
Right?
guys. It's simple. It's if I work for fucking Best Buy and sign a contract that says you can't speak against
Dude,
our
Fatty,
company
you're like
publicly,
3
and I say
steps
everybody
behind in the
Best Buy, I
conversation.
work for
Just
Best Buy, but
don't.
fucking Circuit City is fucking better, and they fire me. Already
Is
signed the
Circuit City the government?
No, it's the
I mean, that's
same
why I'm trying to
equivalent.
work
We're
it
talking
up,
about the government.
right?
It's the
Slowly
same
working up.
Don't be so specific. Don't be so lower IQ minded that you can't convolute. You can't make a
Yeah,
comparison.
How are you going to call us lower
Microcosm
IQ
of
minded
the
with bad grammar?
And Dusty, trust me, once we get through this,
Tony
it
Hawk
goes
This is
right to your
really bottom of the
question.
barrel. I want to
All right,
leave.
just take that metaphor
Yeah,
as
you
a
are.
microcosm. And no, we are not me. I said we. Do you understand plurals and singular? Shut the fuck
You
up.
are talking
All right,
to me now,
anyway,
though.
can you
I'm just
can
waiting
take
on
that
Sarah to get
comparison
back so I
and
can
then
say hi to
expand it to
you,
the
beautiful
government? It's
people.
the same.
Okay, the
comparison.
reason why we can't expand it to the government, and I'll tell you why we can't expand
You
it.
like
to the
Tom
government,
Brady broke
because the
Netflix,
government
but-
has powers to use. It has what's called a monopoly on force, so it can use violence and force to imprison you, to steal your money, to do all sorts of things, to tax you, etc. And
Okay.
so we have different restrictions on the federal government and state governments and the government in general than we do on a private entity such as Circuit City or Best Buy. So while it might be okay in the context of Circuit City or Best Buy to fire you because of your speech, you cannot do that with the government. Now, there are certain things that the government can do. So the
If she's
government,
not back
if
in 3
you're
minutes,
giving
I'm
you
out.
money, they can say none of this money can be used, for example, to advocate.
I mean, I'm also
for
out if she's back.
They can make that restriction on it.
So I guess I'm
As
leaving at
long
9:50
as
is what I'm
you're
saying.
free to advocate for abortion in other contexts without using their money. So you can't use the money they gave you to print an abortion ad, but you can, using your own money, print an abortion ad, and they can't rescind the funding because you did that. Does that make sense?
Wick,
Yeah,
when
so
you were in the Air Force,
It's kind of funny
could you
though,
be kicked
because
out
you,
for
Yeah,
like
you, you can actually use that same argument, saying that okay, so now
Welcome back.
I'm an
They were
employee.
all naughty. They're all on my naughty list. Every single one, especially Soy twice.
Wick,
Okay?
you're such a
I'm
rat.
agreeing
I
with
didn't even
you,
call you
but
a
I'm
wicker.
thinking
Just
how
stop
you-
cutting the
I
beard
don't
hair and you'll
understand
be
how can
sick up
anyone
by
not
then.
agree that the government can do anything they want to do. Literally, they've been
Well,
doing it.
do you
all
not think there
the
should be
time that they're
restrictions on the government?
Who cares?
You know what? I
just
want to
sure.
know. I want
That's
to
not
know.
realistic.
I want to know why we
They fucking
censored.
infiltrated the fucking civil rights movement illegally and admitted. What are we gonna do about it?
Am
They
I
probably
muted?
fucking us ass right now
No,
doing
he
Al
can hear
Qaeda
you.
is now.
Okay.
You
I
can't-
want
they
to
can do whatever they
know
wanna do.
why we
You act
censored.
like the government is going to be some peaceful. We're going to abide by the laws. They could do
Hey,
whatever they want.
cousin, shut the fuck up for a minute. She's trying to read.
Thank
She's the
you.
host. You're talking
Evil
over her.
Joker from the Dark Knight looking motherfucker. Shut the fuck
You
up.
shut the fuck up. Go be pudgy somewhere else.
It's that magical. You know what? I
sorry.
feel like Nova was
Would you?
just so much more. I want to know why we censored our redheads here. I'm sorry, but I just want to know why. I feel like that's a hate speech
Money
or
talks.
something. P. Fletch sends in a big 5. What is the stance on coerced speech from special protected groups?
Give us an
Coerced
example.
speech.
What does that mean?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
give us an example.
Like,
Sarah,
you
I
have
got
to
I
call
gotta
me
head
by my
out. Sarah,
preferred
I have
pronouns. If you-
one
pronouns.
final question for Nova.
Or go to jail.
Nova,
Oh yeah.
have you learned the 4 components of GDP by now?
Who's somebody
Wait,
asked me?
Yes, Nova,
was
have you
asking him.
learned the 4 components of GDP?
Okay, no.
Oh, is your little buddy non-fun sending you messages?
No,
or
no,
what
no,
are-
no. I just watched that, and I just want to know if since then you have been curious enough to look it up. I actually didn't
Wait, are
know.
you a non-fun
I didn't
user?
know on top.
I
I'm a
already-
non-fun
I already
watcher.
knew a couple of the terms, but I don't really like giving people a whole lot of viral moments, so I just let them do most of the talking. I'm not a master debater. You know what I mean?
No, 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 no. I'm just asking if since then you've looked up the 4
I,
components of
I have
GDP.
looked up a few of the ones that I didn't know, but I'm not really interested in
There's only 4.
debating that. Why?
It's not a. I'm not trying to
Why?
debate. I'm just curious if you know them now.
Oh, you said debate. Never mind.
Yeah,
Okay,
I know.
I guess not.
We're
All
just-
right. Anyway, Sarah, it's been
Kind of a
great.
lame gotcha.
I'm very happy that you invited me. I had a great time. Thank you, Neve. Thank you, Wick, for coming on and fighting with me and giving an actual, real, consistent argument. Even though I think you're stupid and wrong, and we'll talk about it
Oh,
later.
You know what? You can think
it's
that
been
all
great.
day. You'd still be
How
wrong.
rude.
You know, I would
He'll
go
just
against you
concede
at
it,
any
Wick.
point.
It's okay.
That's true.
But
I concede
I would
to
want to
Wick.
have a
I
debate
always
where you
concede
don't
to
use
Wick.
hypotheticals for everything
Thank
that
you.
I know you're too low IQ to understand the Joker, but thank you
Soy,
very
we'll
much.
have
and
a
I'll see
one-on-one
you guys
debate
later.
at this at some point. Maybe I'll jump on your channel at some point. and
Thank
I'll-
you,
Bye,
Soy.
guys.
I appreciate you coming tonight.
You're
Have
such a
wonderful
sweetheart, Sarah.
evening.
Good night.
See, that's why they send me money, not you.